This guy looks like a harmless bookstore owner, but he's holding books so dangerous the world government banned them. Meet Lin Jie, a guy who casually flirts with literal goddesses in his sleep, and turns divine beings into blushing wrecks just by talking to them. Even world-ending demon lords sit across from him dripping in cold sweat. But don't let his calm attitude fool you, his life is an absolute nightmare. Linji read every book's making his knowledge a unranked good. Every single night he has to surround himself with massive protection barriers just to survive until morning. Because the shadow government is actively hunting him down for what he sells. He isn't handing out normal fiction, he's giving desperate people forbidden grimoires that grant godlike power. Books containing spells so dark that could erase entire cities with a single chant. He knows every customer's deepest trauma the second they walk through his door, and he doesn't give out books to anyone at all. But a violent storm is swallowing Nuojin, but the worst danger is not coming from the sky. Most shop owners would lock up, but Linji opens his little bookstore like this is a normal day. He calmly pulls a book from the shelf while the rain keeps getting worse outside. He takes the book with him without knowing his next customer will change everything. Linji won't close because a soaked stranger might still need somewhere warm to stop. He leaves the door open for exactly that person. 2 cups of hot tea wait on the counter beside a clean towel. Linji calls it kindness while quietly hoping kindness might also create a regular customer. Across the rain-soaked street, a different problem is already racing to his door. Hunter Shuksu cuts through the alley after being caught in a bloody fight with her own people. Her pursuers never get close. Ji breaks one attacker and finishes another before their bodies can hit the flooded ground. The battle leaves bodies behind, while Ji is hurt and badly outnumbered. Unfortunately, filthy blood lets a hunter recover from wounds that should be fatal, but Ji still needs time before her body is ready again. Her ribs are broken, her strength is dropping, and the other hunters will follow the scent of blood through the rain. She turns her weapon into an ordinary-looking cane so she can disappear before they arrive. For Ji, surviving the next hour matters more than winning the whole fight. That is when she notices one impossible detail in the dead street. Only one shop is still open. The bookstore has a clear path to its door, a glowing open sign and shelter waiting directly across from the alley. Ji needs somewhere to hide, so chance becomes the only choice she can afford. She heads for the light while knowing her enemies won't give her more time. The rain follows her right up to the door. Seeing the bookstore still open makes the timing feel less lucky than suspicious. Ji reaches for the only open door because standing outside means certain death. Blood coats her hand as she forces herself to open it. The narrow shop is packed with books and lit by a single warm pool of light. Linjae is calmly reading behind the counter as if he expected a customer to walk in from a battle. The untouched tea towel and empty seat make Ji feel like the owner prepared the shop just for her. Linji simply welcomes the soaked beauty and pushes the hot tea to her. He thinks he is being a good host. Ji thinks an almost too calm stranger has identified her the second she enters. The details around her keep feeding that suspicion, from the blocked stairs to the books piled like a planned maze. In her eyes, no ordinary store owner would arrange help so perfectly for a wounded hunter on the run. Linjae praises her appearance because smooth charm comes naturally to him. Ji starts wondering whether he belongs to the Mystery Tower, the Order of Truth, or some darker faction watching from the shadows. Whatever he is, she decides he can't possibly be ordinary. Lin gestures calmly, while Ji keeps one hand ready on the hidden blade inside her cane. Linji sees her tension and gently asks if she has run into trouble. That innocent question sounds to Ji like proof that he already knows everything. She tests him by admitting that she does have a problem. That is when Linji hears the opening for the comforting talk that he believes every good store owner should offer. Ji instead hears a man deciding how much of her secret he wants to reveal. Lin pours more tea while both of them misunderstand the conversation. Linji says vague language gives people space to speak honestly, which only makes Ji more certain that every word is calculated. He invites her to sit down so they can talk properly. Ji reasons that the bookstore owner couldn't have learned about the ambush after it happened, so he may have known beforehand. That chance makes escaping him feel even less realistic. When she mentions a magical mirror egg, Linji reaches for a story that sounds relevant to a broken trust. The book describes a creature whose egg seduces souls and turns long-standing friends into people ruled by greed. Its victims betray their partners and misuse their group before greed finally drives them to kill. Linjae means to explain the emotional shape of betrayal rather than Ji's exact situation. He mistakes her grief for a far simpler disaster, a woman hurt by a cheating lover. Ji is too shaken by his apparent insight to correct him. Her silence convinces Linji that his diagnosis landed perfectly. Ji asks what she should do, convinced that a high-ranking dark wizard is about to give her an answer. Linjae mentally runs through the steps of his favorite form of bookshop therapy. Once he understands a customer's problem, he gives some advice sharp enough to make them return for more. For a woman betrayed by someone close, he decides mercy is the wrong lesson. He finds the book he believes she needs. To Lin Ji, it is a serious story about a young woman who lost her direction in life. To Ji, the advice looks like a weapon chosen with horrible precision. The book triggers a change in her corrupted blood before she can even understand what he has handed her. Hunters gain power by injecting themselves with the dangerous blood of dream beasts. More corrupted blood means more strength, but it also makes animalization worse until the hunter later dies. That is when Ji realizes the book's power could overturn the source of a hunter's strength itself. Lin Ji's casual support sounds to her like an order to make the change without regret. The advice leaves her on the verge of tears because it offers a way out of the fate she thought was certain. Lin Ji notices the reaction and assumes his comfort has finally reached her. He reads a dramatic line from the book with all the confidence of a man delivering the perfect therapy session. Ji hears words aimed straight at the life she wants to reclaim. For Lin Ji, the answer is simple. She needs to choose herself and stop saving the people who hurt her. The mix-up has become a truth in Ji's mind. Ji accepts the book because to her it offers a completely new path. Lin Ji celebrates what he thinks is the beginning of a healthier tomorrow for his newest customer. He raises the tea in a small toast. Ji downs the boiling drink without doubt, treating the pain as part of whatever trial he has set for her. Lin Ji is stunned that she actually drinks it since he only wanted to warm her up. Her calm reaction makes the strange customer even more memorable. Lin holds the chosen book while their talk comes to an end. Lin Ji moves back to practical matters. He says she can borrow the book for 1 month with an extra 7-day grace period. Ji treats the borrowing deadline like another order from a hidden master. Before leaving, she asks who this man really is. Lin Ji answers with complete honesty that he is only an ordinary bookstore owner who likes helping people. As Ji returns to the storm, Lin begins a simple farewell. Lin cheerfully wishes her a safe trip back. Helping a stranger makes him feel better than a day of sales ever could. He starts wondering whether kindness is the reason he was sent into this world at all. Meanwhile, Ji leaves the bookstore with a new purpose and the strength to pursue it. She decides the traitors who betrayed her must die, then resolves to return and speak with Lin Ji again. Ji prepares to leave with the book while Lin's strange kindness stays on her mind. Lin Ji has no idea that his casual advice just altered the course of a hunter's life. For him, it was only another good deed. Lin still treasures the book tied to the ordinary world he lost. To understand why it matters, we have to return to Earth before the bookstore ever existed. Back then, Lin had an ordinary name and what seemed like an ordinary life. At first, the old book only made him homesick, but it would soon pull him into another world. In 2017, Lin Ji worked as a cultural studies professor at a university library. His world was lectures, research, and books rather than hunters and dark wizards. That life ended out of nowhere. After saying goodbye to his students one day, he expected to return tomorrow like always. Instead, something answered a ritual in another world. Lin Ji was pulled through the unknown with no chance to understand what had chosen him. But even he admits that being summoned like that felt a little excessive. The people behind the ritual had gambled everything on a desperate wish. Their circle was built to grant any request gave the person making it could pay the price. With the plans complete, the summoning could finally begin. Lin Ji had no way to refuse a process happening in a world he had never seen. His one wish was wonderfully simple. He wanted to own every book in the world. The magic circle had a much less simple answer in mind. It gave him a new world instead of a larger library. Only afterward did he learn that wish-granting magic always collects its due. Lin Ji could only accept that the deal was far stranger than advertised. The new world became real the moment he opened his eyes there. He had no path home, so he stopped looking for one and began building a life from whatever he had. He later arrived in the city of Nuojin, where months passed faster than he ever expected. His strange ability refreshes the shelves every day and replaces books he has finished reading. That miracle gives his tiny bookstore an endless supply of impossible titles. Lin Ji has learned to treat the miracle as normal because panicking wouldn't make it less useful. The shop became the closest thing he has to a home. And books became the one language that still connects his old life to this new one. That is why every unusual customer still feels like a chance to make the shop matter. The memory fades as the bell announces another visitor. Lin Ji quickly assumes the new arrival must be carrying a story worth hearing. An elderly man enters under an umbrella, hiding most of his face under a mask and old clothes. To Lin Ji, he is simply one of the bookstore's reliable regulars. To anyone who knows the underworld, he is anything but ordinary. The old man crosses the door with a book ready to return. Lin Ji spots him at once. The visitor has been coming here long enough for their strange friendship to become routine. Lin Ji is glad to see him back. He asks if the man has come to return the book he borrowed. The old man tries to correct Lin Ji's casual nickname without putting real force behind it. Lin Ji agrees to call him Mr. Wild and moves straight to asking about the book. Wild praises it as a best work written by someone important who has already died. The author is the faceless man Frank Wild himself. Wild once fought one of the Tower of Secret Right's 10 glorious knights, and destroyed nearly 10,000 square kilometers in the process. That battle earned him a destructive rank and a name most people would rather not discuss. Lin Ji knows none of that. To him, Old Wiley is just one of the few customers who keeps the little bookstore alive. Lin Ji believes Wild lives alone because his children mistreat him, his lover left, and his colleagues avoid his scary appearance. He first met the lonely old man 2 years earlier and decided that he needed a friend more than anything else. That decision turned the bookstore owner into Wild's accidental life counselor. Lin Ji had read The Masked Visitor as rich-guarded, lonely, and far too proud to ask for company directly, so he treated the man's books as clues rather than demanding answers from him. The approach worked well enough to make Wild keep returning. When Wild asks about a certain kind of book, Lin Ji assures him that the shop has something suitable. The request sounds harmless, but Wild is testing the boundaries of the bookstore's knowledge. Lin Ji assumes the customer is simply shy about talking about his interests. He doesn't judge people for what they read. That lack of fear only makes Wild more certain that the store owner sees through him. Lin Ji concludes from the returned books that Wild is a skilled language expert with deep knowledge of rare languages. Wild is pleased that the store owner seems to understand him so well. Lin Ji keeps the talk focused on books instead of digging into the old man's past. Now Wild wonders if the store owner sensed the magic hidden in the manuscripts he brought. Lin Ji mentions that he has some experience with language research and asks if Wild knows the field. Wild modestly says he only dabbles, while Lin Ji mistakes the response for the humility of a serious academic. The two men keep talking past each other with perfect politeness. Wild realizes every answer from the supposed bookstore owner points to knowledge no ordinary human should possess. In his mind, Lin Ji can only be a true devil hiding behind a friendly smile. Lin Ji privately celebrates another successful attempt at making a customer feel understood. He reaches for the book that first gave Wild a new direction in life. Lin Ji says it came from a glorious ancient world and preserves one of that world's languages. What he calls an old language is the impossible knowledge that sent Wild's research into a new field. Wild can only wonder what kind of fearsome being casually lends out secrets like these. The answer remains safely hidden behind the label of ordinary store owner. For Wild, the earlier book called The Language of the Devil opened a path that didn't exist in any known school of study. He now needs more clues from languages like it if he wants to continue the research. Lin Ji's bookstore has become the one place where that impossible request might actually be answered. 40 years earlier, Frank Wild was chasing knowledge even other wizards feared. He believed language could do more than share ideas because the right words could reshape reality. To most people, words were only messages. To a wizard, the right phrase could become a curse, a blessing, or even a weapon. White wizards record curses in writing, while dark wizards can cast them directly through speech. That difference is the line between scholarly theory and immediate damage. Wild devoted himself to crossing that line. Every fragment of old language looked like a possible route to stronger magic, but the research made him dangerous enough to lose the acceptance of ordinary society. Years of isolation followed. A book from Lin Ji's shelves reached him. The text held remnants of knowledge that didn't belong to any school Wild spotted. It changed the direction of his work. What Wild had treated as a forbidden obsession suddenly looked like a field with real answers. He figures the book's owner must be a hidden scholar of overwhelming rank. The cursed language inside the text gives Wild a foundation he could never create alone. That is why he returns to the bookstore with much more than a simple reader's curiosity. Lin Ji apologizes for keeping his old customer waiting. Wild slowly says the book opened a serious new direction in his research. Lin Ji mistakes the truth for the concerns of a lonely scholar who finally found important work. He pushes Wild to be confident in the path he has chosen. That is when the Dark Wizard hears approval from someone who may already know the true scope of his work. Lin Ji only sees an old man who needs support. Wild begins listing the cults and religious orders he has studied while trying to gauge Lin Ji's reaction. The Church of the Dome, the Church of Pestilence, and other major groups are familiar territory to him. But the ghoul cults described in Lin Ji's book are unknown even to a man with decades of forbidden research behind him. That gap convinces Wild the book holds a deeper system of ritual knowledge. Lin Ji gently tells him that he doesn't need to discuss anything he finds difficult. Wild takes the kindness as a warning that his research has changed his life beyond repair. Lin Ji believes any scholar forced into forbidden work probably suffered because society rejected him first. He sees Wild's silence as proof that the subject is painful. Wild admits he never published his findings and kept only a private copy of the work. Lin Ji thinks of the academic career he lost when he was sent here and imagines where his 6th cultural studies book might have taken him. Because they are kindred spirits in his mind, Lin Ji offers Wild that sole unpublished copy. Wild is stunned that this strange master would hand over an experimental manuscript with no demand for payment. The gift feels too important to accept casually. Wild wonders what hidden condition could be attached to such kindness. Lin-Jae assumes his customer feels guilty about borrowing the only copy. He assures Wild that the work will become more valuable in the right hands. For Lin-Jae, knowledge should keep moving rather than sit unused on a shelf. He tells Wild that what exists in the mind can't be stolen away like wealth, name, or status. The advice is meant to restore an alone scholar's confidence. Wild hears a powerful mage declaring that worldly rewards are worthless beside true understanding. Lin-Jae says that Wild take the manuscript. He believes the old man has been chasing fame and fortune only because being alone left him empty. What Wild really needs, Lin-Jae decides, is a reason to reconnect with people and feel their concern again. The advice lands like a personal truth. Wild thanks him while quietly wondering whether the talk of fame and fortune was meant as a threat. Lin-Jae clarifies that he only hopes Wild enjoys the book. Wild accepts the answer with the care of someone receiving orders from a superior. He figures Lin-Jae has named the price without ever saying it plainly. From now on, he must act slowly enough to deserve the master's continued guidance. Before leaving, Wild presents a gift of his own. Lin-Jae quickly spots the small statues as gargoyles. That is when Wild offers them as proof of gratitude, but the gesture is much more serious than Lin-Jae realizes. But the gargoyles automatically detect murderous intent and possess the power of panic-ranked defenders. Wild considers them humble safety for a being who plainly doesn't need safety. Lin-Jae sees them as charming lucky stone tablets that keep evil away. He thanks Wild and looks forward to whatever books the old man brings next time. The casual offer sounds like approval for Wild to return with further discoveries. Wild leaves convinced that Lin-Jae is genuinely compassionate despite the power hiding under his manners. He promises to bring something worthy of the bookstore owner on his next visit. The old wizard steps back into the rain with the manuscript and his new obligation. Lin-Jae watches another customer leave, feeling a little less alone than before. The gargoyles remain behind as quiet guardians. That is when their presence turns the humble bookstore into a much more dangerous place than it appears. Lin-Jae admires the pair as a remarkably kind male and female set. The problem is that he has no idea that their real function is to stop anyone who comes to kill him. With the customer gone, he decides that is enough work for one rainy day. Moments later, the shop returns to its ordinary silence. Yet both Jishu and Frank Wild now carry Lin-Jae's harmless advice into worlds of violence and secret magic. What the bookstore owner does not realize is that his new gargoyles are already drawing monsters toward him. Lin still has no idea what kind of being dragged him into this world. He only knows that someone heard his wish and sent him to Nuojin. At first that felt like a miracle, but now he wonders if it came with a hidden price. The problem is that the price may only be starting to reveal itself. Part of him still hopes the being who granted it was simply a kind genie. That hope becomes easier when he remembers he has already paid for the wish with his entire old life. Finally, he has only one way to honor the books he was given. He must get people to read them and pass their value forward. The goal is modest. Lin-Jae promises himself that he will keep trying anyway. Elsewhere, the results of his ordinary bookstore are becoming impossible to ignore. News from 23rd Street reaches people who understand exactly who Frank Wild is. The black-scaled, faceless man has surfaced in Nuojin after years of doubt. An informant confirms that Wild was located on 23rd Street and may be connected to a hidden outpost. Those details are too important to keep local. The agent chooses to finish the immediate work before reporting to Mr. Joseph. But events have already moved faster than the report. The people looking into the case begin assembling what happened in the rain. The first clue points to an old conflict that should have stayed buried. Every answer creates another reason for concern. The trail leads back to 23rd Street. That is where the worst chances begin to look real. An urgent messenger reaches the senior agents. The report is delivered directly to the man in charge. The magical mirror egg case quickly comes up again. It is still one of the threats the tower can't afford to mishandle. But this new report is worse. The agent asks if the mirror egg has caused another incident. The answer isn't that simple. Someone important has appeared where they shouldn't be. The group starts comparing the new details with the deaths already reported. The details suggest a hidden player has entered the city, but no one can yet explain why the pieces connect. The full message arrives. Several hunters were killed on 23rd Street. That changes the talk from watch to crisis. The agents assume Wild is responsible because few people could erase hunters that cleanly. Their attention turns to the faceless wizard who has finally crawled back into public view. They decide Wild has emerged from hiding at last. One senior member dismisses the younger agent's theory as the work of an overconfident mind. The facts are still thin. All they know for certain is that Wild entered an ordinary-looking bookstore before the deaths. That detail is too strange to ignore. The shop has existed quietly for years without drawing attention. Its 3-year history makes it look even less like a newly built dark wizard outpost. The agents had initially suspected it belonged to druids. That theory isn't much comfort. Druids follow nature and should have no reason to work beside dark wizards. The contradiction makes the bookstore more suspicious, not less. Every faction involved has a reason to fear a place that can't be raided. The agents refuse to give in with anyone connected to darkness. Their leader sees caution as the only safe response. He orders the problem treated as a possible plot rather than an innocent chance. Joseph rejects the idea that a vicious dark wizard would spend his time reading books in an ordinary bookstore. He threatens his apprentice Claude for bringing him a theory that sounds this ridiculous. Claude has no better answer. Joseph chooses to visit 23rd Street himself and see what the bookstore is hiding. His patience is gone. The search is about to become personal. While the tower prepares to move, the city remains unaware of what is gathering under the rain. The bookstore still looks harmless from the outside. That illusion won't survive a visit from the man now heading to it. Abraham Joseph was once one of the Tower of Secret Right's 10 Radiant Knights. His name carries enough authority to turn a rumor into an operation, and now that authority is walking straight to Lin Ji's door. The rain is finally easing, but Ji's real storm is only getting worse. Someone has already returned to the White Wolves with news that could tear the group apart. Ji's escape has forced every side to move before they are ready. What looked like an internal fight is now becoming a war. Their enemies are already choosing who to kill next. The bookstore visit has given Ji a reason to keep fighting. She returns to the people who still trust her. But the crisis means she can't visit Lin Ji again today. Her enemies have even mocked the name of the Holy Flame's undefeated knight. They believe the White Wolves are finally weak. That confidence is built on the power they stole. Helix, leader of the White Wolves, has become the central threat. His authority once made him a protector of the group. Now it gives his betrayal much more reach. The hunters prepare for an enemy who knows their every weakness. Helix was once second in command, which makes the revolt feel like a betrayal from the inside. The fighting begins without room for negotiation. Ji's side has to defend itself quickly. Blood starts flowing before anyone can finish telling the new situation. Max asks Ji what happened while their allies struggle to contain the attack. He confirms that Helix has the magical mirror egg and has become mad under its influence. The enemy has also joined forces with the third-in-command Keiki, leaving Ji's side badly outmatched. The alliance was planned in advance, which means the attack on Ji was never an impulsive mutiny. Their opponents expected her to die before she could return. Instead, Ji came back stronger. Max says her arrival and her defense against the pursuers were the only reasons they escaped. The people around her have seen something impossible in that return, but Ji can now control the side effects of corrupted blood even while transformed to feat way beyond an ordinary hunter. That strength gives the survivors a chance. Helix and Kaki are no longer unreachable figures once Ji can use her power without losing herself. The White Wolves' intel rat Ryan spots that the hierarchy has changed. Every enemy who relied on Ji's limits has miscalculated. Ji decides there is no turning back now. Her allies accept the order. They move before the traitors can regroup. The attack tears through the chaos of the hunters' hideout. Ji's changed power turns the battle from a retreat into a hunt. The enemy defenses begin to crack. Helix's rebellion has pushed the White Wolves into open war. Ji follows the trail to the people who chose the mirror egg over their own comrades. She finds Kaki and realizes he is the only one still standing in her path. The fight is already decided in her mind. Kaki has no time to explain himself. Ji presses the attack before he can use his position to control the room. When the injured men call for a syringe, the mirror egg's influence becomes impossible to hide. The traitors are no longer acting like people in control of their own judgment. Ji watches for the signs of what the egg has done to Helix. The question is no longer whether he used the magical mirror egg. His broken words confirm that the artifact has consumed the man they once followed. The fight leaves only the aftermath of the power nobody should have touched. Ji's group survives the first clash, but their position remains unstable. They need help powerful enough to deal with what Helix has become. Someone suggests asking Mr. Raywood for help because a house mage may not refuse them. The proposal gives the surviving hunters their first practical next step. But Ji knows the mirror egg crisis has grown beyond a private revenge, and the people who came for her will soon learn why Lin Jie's guidance changed everything. Lin still remembers the woman who saved him when he first arrived with nothing. She gave him money, papers, and a legal place to live when he had nowhere else to turn. He hopes the book he gave her repaid even a small part of that kindness. Unfortunately, the thought of anyone bullying her still terrifies him. The bell rings again. Ji Zhu has returned after only 3 days, and Lin Ji takes it as a lucky sign. He resolves to give this returning customer his best effort. Ji apologizes because she's already come back needing more help. Lin Jie sees a woman who believes she has disappointed the person who tried to support her. The gargoyle on the shelf doesn't move, but Ji can feel its oppressive power. But she reads the guardian's presence as proof that Lin Ji still believes she can become stronger. To her, that patience shows a huge heart. Her loyal follower arrives at the bookstore with her. Lin Ji welcomes them both. The presence of an escort makes him wonder what kind of crisis has brought her back. He notices that Ji is too tense to be visiting for an ordinary chat. Lin Jae figures the scoundrel who hurt her left deeper trauma than he thought. He stops himself before saying the wrong thing. If she really took revenge as he advised, he expects her to look more confident now. Instead, Ji looks like she has failed. She says Helix escaped after she fought him for 2 days, despite the strength she gained from Lin Ji's guidance. Helix knew he couldn't beat her, abandon his collaborators, and used the prepared escape route she failed to notice. Ji blames herself for underestimating the enemy. Lin Ji searches for a match that makes the story easier to understand. He decides that choosing a possible partner is like shopping, then gets tangled in his own awkward love and war analogy. After translating her hunter conflict into a connection fight, he concludes the scoundrel simply ran once. Things turned against him. Ji waits for the real answer. Lin Ji realizes she is asking for more than sympathy. Elsewhere, Ryan brings dangerous intel to the people hunting Ji. He shows that Frank Wilde is now in Nuojin and enjoys watching the news shock the room. Ryan directs them to an informant in the Order of Truth if they want more details, then leaves them to handle the target. His employer reminds him that he now serves her, not his own ambitions. Ryan accepts the warning while hiding his anger. He knows that learning how to control a hunter's change would give even a sewer rat the power to become king. Back in the bookstore, Ji's followers can't understand why their leader addresses an ordinary man like someone far above her rank. Lin Jae finally gives the simple advice he thinks she needs. Her enemy isn't the man she is chasing, but the fear inside her. He tells her to wait because fear weakens once it is faced honestly. Ryan dismisses the answer as vague, empty language and calls Lin Ji a liar. The accusation breaks the careful mood inside the shop. Ji's people demand to know why he would speak to their master that way. Ryan is reminded that he was brought in for useful intel, not because anyone trusts him. He says that he knows manipulators like Lin Ji better than anyone and won't take the advice seriously. The others threaten to cut him down if he isn't useful. Ryan decides that winning Ji's trust is now the only way to avoid being ruled himself. The tension leaves him alone even among the people he is trying to influence. Ji keeps her attention on the bigger crisis. Helix is still free with the magical mirror egg, and fear can't be allowed to stop her again. Her return to Lin Ji's shop has given the others a glimpse of the force behind her new resolve. Ryan watches those reactions and realizes the bookstore owner has influence he can't easily explain. That makes Lin Jae both a threat and a possible source of power. The competing schemes continue under the polite talk. Ji's group prepares to pursue the traitors again. The next move will require more than brute force. Every ally now has to prove where they stand. Ryan is asked about the follower he brought with him. The question catches him before he can prepare another lie. Someone demands to know where that follower has gone. Ryan can only say that the missing man was caught in a little trouble. Ryan sent a follower to the bookstore, but the man never came back. Ji quickly realizes the owner has already handled the threat he warned her about. The problem is that even she could not have stopped the gargoyle in time. Whatever killed the spy did it so fast that almost nothing remained. Ryan feels the room turn cold around him. He takes Lin Ji going upstairs as an elegant signal for the gargoyle to erase the problem without dirtying his hands. Ji notices his fear and asks what is wrong. Ryan can't admit what he has just understood. The bookstore has become a place where one wrong move can end a life instantly. Ji accepts that Lin Ji's power reaches much further than she first believed. She apologizes for bringing an attendant who behaved rudely before him. Lin Ji says he was only joking. He sees a young woman who is taking every small mistake far too seriously. His real thought is that another round of therapy could turn this returning customer into a friend for life. Lin Ji asks them to get back to business. Ji asks him for another advice. Lin Ji notices that she looks mentally shattered after being away less than 5 minutes. He brings up the suspicious follower on his own. Ji has to reconsider everyone around her. The betrayal may have been closer than she knew. That is when her fear turns into the question of who can still be trusted. The bookstore's warning makes the traitor's role impossible to dismiss. Now Ji wonders if any of her allies are truly hers. Lin Jae spots the feeling as the panic of someone betrayed by people she depended on. He tells her that no matter what others do, she must never expose her true nature. The advice is meant to help her preserve her dignity. Ji hears it as a command to hide the power Lin Ji has awakened inside her. That hidden strength is now the most valuable thing she has. She realizes it has already saved her life once. The lesson is clear enough to become a rule. Lin Jae continues with the kind of guidance he gives every lost customer. He tells Ji that she must find her own calling in life. For her, that calling is starting to look like changing the hunter world itself. The future she imagined as revenge grows into something larger. Ji starts to understand what she wants to protect. The answer isn't simply defeating Helix. It is building a life where the hunters no longer have to fear their own corrupted blood. Elsewhere, the people watching the White Wolves make their own plans around that coming change. The struggle over the group is turning into a fight for its entire future. Every faction wants the power Ji now carries. The battle won't remain private for long. Ji's choices are beginning to draw the attention of people far above her old station. The bookstore's influence is spreading through rumors no one can trace back to Lin Jie. But Ji still believes the owner understands exactly what she is preparing to do. Lin Jie is only trying to help someone recover from a terrible breakup. That gap between intent and result keeps widening. Ji slowly absorbs every word as if it were a lesson from a hidden master. Lin Ji tells her not to be an ordinary person who simply accepts the world as it is. Ji takes that as approval to cultivate power among the hunters and gradually transform their society. She promises that she understands what he's trying to tell her. Her certainty alarms the people watching the talk. What Lin Ji does not realize is that his casual support has become a revolutionary plan. He starts wondering whether this unusually devoted customer has developed the wrong kind of bond to him. Ji leaves the bookstore believing her path has finally been confirmed. Abraham Joseph enters the bookstore expecting to find a dark wizard's den. Instead, he finds a quiet little shop that looks almost harmless. Lin notices the old man and sees nothing more than a new customer. He keeps reading The Little Prince while Joseph studies every possible threat. Lin Ji thinks its gentle truths might suit an older visitor. Joseph studies the shop before making his move. The owner's calm manner seems oddly welcoming. Joseph can't decide whether that welcome is a trap. Everything feels too planned. His suspicion deepens. Joseph remembers that Wild never gives worthless gifts. He believes the bookstore itself must be Wild's message. The young store owner's casual greeting tests his patience. Joseph notices the gargoyle. That guardian changes the whole calculation. He spots danger the moment he sees it. Joseph realizes Lin Ji knows Old Wily. Now he wonders if the two men are enemies. The gargoyle could be a warning meant for anyone connected to Wild, but Joseph can't find a reason for that hostility. He reaches a different answer. The store owner may be Wild's old ally. Lin Ji sees only an elderly man with a history. He says he has known Old Wily for years. Their conflict 2 years ago ended with Wild disappearing without answer. Joseph hears the admission slowly. Lin Jie finds the depth of their old friendship genuinely moving. Joseph remains wary. He chooses to test this cheerful stranger directly. The test begins with ordinary talk. Lin Ji won't be intimidated by rank he doesn't know exists. Joseph isn't used to anyone speaking so casually to him. That alone makes the bookstore owner feel dangerous. Joseph remembers that he has been a radiant knight for too long to receive such familiarity. Lin Jie invites him to sit for tea and read while Joseph says he is neither tired nor interested in books. The offer still gets through to him. Lin Ji searches the shelves for some advice. He picks Son of the Abyss. Lin Ji suggests it as bedtime reading and stress relief. Joseph mocks a grown man for reading a strange fairy tale. Lin Ji won't apologize for his taste. He calls it the best fairy tale he has read and says his copy is the last one in Nuogen. Joseph can't believe the store owner calls such an object a fairy tale. Lin Ji simply calls it a classic. Joseph feels the book's significance pressing against his skepticism. He denies caring about it while clearly caring very much. The hidden power inside the book starts to respond. Joseph is no longer in control of the meeting. His artifact Candela resonates with something in the book, and he realizes Lin Ji's bedtime remark may have been an instruction. The reaction crushes him. Lin Ji rushes over when Joseph suddenly collapses. The old knight can't answer. His body goes still. Lin Ji checks his breathing and pulse, then figures he is only asleep. Joseph has entered a place the bookstore owner can't see. The shop remains quiet around him. Since the old man passed out in the store, Lin Jie chooses to let him rest and ask what happened when he wakes. Lin tries to lift Joseph and immediately discovers one unexpected problem. The old knight is far heavier than he looks. At first, Lin thinks he can move him alone. But Joseph does not move at all. The store owner can't believe the old man weighs this much. He compares him to a brown bear wrapped in iron muscles. Old Wily would have been much easier to carry. Lin Jie wishes another customer could help. None arrive. So he keeps trying. That is when Lin Ji notices Joseph's elaborate prosthetic parts. The knight's body holds mechanisms no ordinary elder should possess. That makes the collapse look less strange. Lin Ji starts forming a practical answer. The storm is the key. Lin finally thinks he understands what happened. Moisture may have shorted Joseph's prosthetic joints and leaked electricity into his body. Even Lin Ji feels strange handling someone this new. He realizes dragging an unconscious man into a dark store could look deeply suspicious. He blames his own overactive mind. He says nobody would misunderstand the scene. The shadows disagree. Lin Ji settles Joseph somewhere safe. He calls the proud old man amazing and wishes him a peaceful rest with his fairy tale dreams. Someone outside hears the movement. The observer doesn't know what is happening inside. Fear fills in the missing details. The bookstore becomes more sinister by the second. Lin Ji tells the visitor that it is dangerous outside and urges them to go home. The warning sounds like a threat to someone already terrified. The stranger retreats. The tower's intel department has now noticed the shop. One of Joseph's admirers has been sent to look into. The young agent joined Tower Intel largely to get closer to the Great Knight. Finding Joseph and Wild connected to the same bookstore shocks him. He tries to believe the shop is ordinary and plans to ask Joseph for an autograph later, but Joseph has been inside too long. The agent can't ignore it. He watches from the street. Linji remains an impossible unknown. The agent hears a line about iron-blooded people having fairy tale dreams. That sounds like a message aimed at Joseph. The agent decides he is no match for this bookstore owner and needs to escape. Linji's harmless order to go home feels like standing face to face with death. The scared agent chooses to report back after only a year in the job. Meanwhile, Joseph's mind starts to wake inside the book's influence. He assumes Candela is causing another vision. That is when the text tells him to continue until the abyss spots him. The words force themselves into his mind. He can't stop them. The familiar throbbing pain slowly vanishes instead of worsening. That relief proves this isn't an ordinary vision. Joseph finally realizes Linji's fairy tale is something much more dangerous. The book has begun healing a wound even Candela couldn't cure. Joseph is no longer just looking into the bookstore. He becomes bound to its mystery. Outside, the terrified agent carries his report away. Inside, Linji still thinks an elderly customer simply fell asleep. Joseph wakes and treats his collapse like nothing happened. Lin is simply relieved because the old man seems unharmed. What should be an awkward rescue quickly becomes another chance to study this strange customer. The problem is that both men are about to reach completely wrong conclusions about each other. Linji reads Joseph's fierce aura and powerful build as obvious signs of a former military career, then praises himself for getting better at judging people. One punch from this iron-bodied veteran could probably launch the frail old wily across the entire shop. That settles it for Linji. Joseph must be carrying the kind of memories that soldiers rarely discuss with strangers. Joseph reaches a much stranger answer about the man who protected him while he was helpless. He believes Linji treats everyone entering the bookstore as a customer worthy of help, displaying a resolve Joseph has seen only in legendary beings. The owner's calm words sound ancient, elegant, and filled with the wisdom of someone who has watched worlds rise and fall. Joseph imagines an immortal who moved beyond ordinary good and evil and opened this shop just to find something strange. The bookstore reflects ancient elven reverence, but his thoughts return to Candela, the first king of the moon elves, whose madness created the Great Plague and changed his suicide weapon into a cursed sword. Every wielder of Candela later loses sanity and dies, and until today, Joseph believed his own end was close. The book changed that certainty. Joseph now suspects Linji as an ancient monster who consumed worldly mysteries to extend his life inside an immortal body without revealing what kind of being he truly is. Linji notices the old man's interest in the book. He decides Joseph is acting like a classic tsundere who loves reading but won't admit it. Time for therapy. Linji says many suffering people bury themselves under guilt, convinced that greater strength in the past could have prevented every tragedy that followed. But veterans struggle especially hard to release old mistakes after surviving events that everyone else can only imagine. Yet the suffering itself isn't what finally destroys them. Linji believes their kindness becomes the real weakness, and Joseph remembers the two former wielders of Candela he once knew. Both men tried to protect everyone around them. They made themselves appear invulnerable so everyone else could feel safe, while their own defenses quietly became too fragile to protect the wounded people hiding underneath. Once that spirit breaks, anything can enter. Linji tells Joseph to stop placing every burden on his own shoulders, privately delighted by how perfectly tailored the advice sounds. Joseph realizes Candela didn't ruin its wielders through raw power alone, since their impossible pursuit of perfection had already pushed them to madness. The truth strikes deep. Linji won't claim that a fairy tale can magically solve everything, since that would make actual psychologists needless. Still, he offers to keep helping Joseph and promises a lasting result, already imagining another regular customer. Now Joseph wonders if the bookstore owner is genuinely willing to shoulder Candela's curse for him. The old knight has survived longer than every previous wielder only because he abandoned himself before the sword could finish the job, leaving his famous title hollow. Moments later, Linji waits for his response. Joseph asks if he is certain, warning that the promise won't be easy to fulfill. Linji sees two elderly men who care so deeply about others that neither knows how to care for himself. His answer remains firm. He tells Joseph that helping won't be a problem, especially when the tired old knight can barely continue carrying so many years of guilt and duty alone. The offer is unconditional. Linji says Joseph has shouldered enough burdens and says that heroes like him deserve the chance to rest. Joseph is overwhelmed by the apparent selflessness of a being powerful enough to see through his entire life. For once, the knight has no immediate answer. He looks down at the little prince. Joseph asks for several days to think and requests the book before promising to return once he has decided whether he can finally accept Lin Jie's help. Lin Jie readily agrees and asks him to register the loan like any other customer. Watching Joseph complete the form, Lin Jie decides that the man's excessive sense of justice is the source of his pain and predicts another regular. Joseph records his name, the borrowing date and the title, The Little Prince, then leaves the needed deposit behind. Lin Jie feels lucky. The two agree to meet again in 7 days. Joseph steps out of the bookstore with a steadier mind than the one he carried inside. For once in years, Candela no longer feels like a sentence he must endure alone. He resolves to follow the righteousness in his heart, accepting that Wild survived with Lin Jie's help, but promising to kill his old enemy himself. The peace only sharpens his purpose. Elsewhere, Wild studies the manuscript Lin Jie entrusted to him and loses himself in its impossible knowledge. To Wild, the work is an ocean of learning as vast as the sea and as deep and strange as an unseen valley. His hands tremble with excitement. The writing appears mad at first, yet a terrifying method gradually shows itself under every new idea. Wild decides the time has come to act on what he learned. The new path extends way beyond anything his former research could reach. If the language of the devil was only the beginning, then the cult of ghouls may expose even more secrets from that horrible lost world. Grateful for everything Lin Jie has given him, Wild prepares a gift he is certain the bookstore owner will love. Claude gets the one report he never wanted to hear because Joseph entered the bookstore. A field agent confirms that their teacher walked straight into the suspicious shop. Claude almost sends backup, but one wrong move could make Joseph vanish for good. So he forces himself to stay calm and prepares a tower for the worst. The answer comes almost at once. Joseph has walked back out. Claude freezes. He orders every agent to withdraw from 23rd Street quickly. The bookstore is reclassified as a Class I area under the tower's highest secrecy. The lost field agent can't understand why a harmless shop suddenly needs the same caution reserved for threats capable of destabilizing all Nuwagen. Claude first asks if anyone is close enough to overhear the call. The agent confirms he is alone. Joseph arrives. The radiant knight cuts off the talk so suddenly that Claude barely has time to acknowledge him before control arrives in a much more physical form. Joseph grabs his apprentice and threatens to send him to the northern border for allowing a wild search around the bookstore. Claude begs for mercy. The message reaches the field agent through the still open link. From the agent's view, Joseph sounds terrifying enough to crush a disobedient follower into pulp without slowing down. Claude knows better. Joseph is brutally sharp with instructions, but anyone who follows them will discover the soft heart and careful concern concealed under the Grand Knight's violent temper. Claude creates the requested Class I file and tells Joseph that only the remaining paperwork needs his approval. Joseph accepts the result. He praises Claude, then asks who is standing nearby and orders an amnesia rune used on the witness. Claude remembers the forgotten detail. The young agent comes from a wealthy wizard family and has exceptional shape-shifting talent, making his accidental exposure especially inconvenient. The gifted shapeshifter is also Joseph's greatest fan, having joined Tower Intel largely for the chance to stand near the radiant knight he worships. Joseph notes that wizard families are rich enough to solve the problem financially, and Claude quickly understands where this talk is going. The Grand Knight suggests a donation. Joseph decides the boy will happily pay for close contact with his idol, leaving Claude horrified that a radiant knight would squeeze money from a child. The fee will also cover wiping his memory. File 0113 formally identifies the bookstore at 423rd Street as a friendly Class I danger that remains under top secret watch. The record is uploaded. Joseph believes the rating will keep anyone who sees it away from the shop, but the secrecy nearby it will soon create the opposite temptation. Back home, he angrily assures his worried callers that he is perfectly fine before realizing the rated file may not have uploaded correctly. He rejects their concern. Candela remains calm after the bookstore meeting, and Joseph confirms that his improved mood comes from genuine relief rather than the cursed sword manipulating him. The telephone rings again. Joseph ends the call by reminding his daughter Melissa to drink her milk, shifting instantly from feared radiant knight to overprotective father. Melissa answers with tired patience. She says she is no longer a child, reminding him that she already holds abnormal rank and serves as a knight captain in her own right. Joseph remains unconvinced. He warns that her attitude will prevent her from getting married, which earns exactly the irritated reaction such fatherly wisdom deserves. Melissa curses his muscle-filled brain. That is when she notices the new book. Joseph's treatment of it shows that this isn't casual reading, since the normally careless warrior handles the battered volume with deep respect. He warns Melissa not to insult the book and threatens to show no mercy if she mistreats knowledge entrusted to him by the strange bookstore owner. Melissa slams the table. Her anger fails to move him. She tries to challenge the ridiculous importance he has attached to a fairy tale, but Joseph's absolute seriousness makes the argument suddenly difficult. He stares her down. Melissa's protest collapses into doubt. Joseph calmly raises the glass again and reminds his powerful knight captain to finish her milk like no rank argument or angry glare could possibly alter his fatherly command. Melissa enters a dark mood. Joseph fondly decides that his daughter has entered another defiant phase without realizing that his own behavior may be the obvious cause. That is when an old family photograph catches his attention. He remembers Melissa as a small child beside her mother and quietly decides that her complaints matter less than seeing her grow up healthy. Melissa examines the book and wonders who wrote a story where the elven king Candela later becomes the cursed sword bearing his name. More importantly, Joseph took it away before she reached the best part, leaving her trapped between mocking the fairy tale and badly wanting its ending. She retreats to her room, furious. Melissa never expected an old brute like her father to read stories this strange. She remembers overhearing his call about the book coming from a highly rated bookstore, and curiosity replaces every sensible reason to stay away. A bookstore is easy to visit. Melissa searches the address and maps a route through Nugent without telling Joseph that his secret rating has become her personal offer. Once she sees the location, Melissa decides there is nothing scary about the shop and plans to look into the highly rated address before Joseph can stop her. One obstacle remains. Melissa glares at the waiting glass. She finally takes it. Still determined to prove she is an adult, the knight captain gulps down every drop of milk before beginning her secret visit to 23rd Street. The endless rain has nearly erased Nuogen beneath the water. Officials seal the lower city because the drains may fail within a week. While experts argue about the storm, Lin fights the flood inside his bookstore with a mop. Every stroke clears one puddle only for more water to rush across the floor. Lin curses the weather and keeps working. The first floor nearly flooded that morning. At last, the tired store owner admires his spotless work. His relief quickly turns to concern for the strange kittens, since a tiny animal wandering through this violent storm might never find its way home. Elsewhere, the young agent finally enters Joseph's office and nearly loses himself in the huge excitement of standing where his idol works. In a neighboring building, a heavyset resident struggles with a dead television. That is when the wiring appears perfectly intact. He realizes the breaker is outside and won't enter the freezing downpour. Looking to the bookstore next door, the lazy resident decides Lin can solve the problem and even imagines he is doing the store owner a favor. In his mind, allowing a neighbor to be useful is practically an act of kindness. He calls Lin, says the television lost power, and claims he can't leave the house. He gives the breaker's location. Lin readily agrees to check it. Before he can step into the storm, an unnatural sensation races through his body and says something else has entered the bookstore. A living shadow rises behind him with two glowing red eyes. Lin spots the visitor and welcomes it like an old acquaintance. The dark creature waits silently. Lin gestures to the electrical box outside. Thinking about how the creature benefited from his books, he assumes it has returned to repay the favor by helping with the simple area problem. Rejecting the offer might hurt its feelings, especially after it crossed the storm to visit him. The shadow slips through the rain and reaches the breaker. The television suddenly comes alive. Delighted, the neighbor thanks Lin and promises to call whenever he needs more help. The dripping creature returns to the bookstore, where Lin politely accepts the gratitude for work he never performed and sends his unusual helper on its way. The neighbor praises himself for living beside such a useful man. A strange buzzing cuts off his smug relaxation. Something appears on the screen. The terrified man screams as an inhuman face stares back from the restored television. But oblivious to the nightmare next door, Lin settles behind his counter and praises himself on finishing yet another good deed for the nearby area. Movement near the entrance catches his attention. Lin lowers his book and looks to the door. Wild has returned. Lin quickly welcomes his familiar customer. Because the weather outside is dangerous, he assumes Wild must have urgent business and asks why the old scholar crossed the flooded city to visit. Wild removes his hat and says he came to express his gratitude. Lin is pleased the previous gift helped, but worries that another valuable present would be excessive. Wild considers that kindness immeasurable. The book Lin gave him has brought Wild inside one step of the overwhelming rank. Only a treasure prepared over 2 painstaking years could approach the value of that guidance, but Wild humbly claims the item just suits Lin's needs. Lin dismisses the praise as an exaggeration. From his view, he has done little enough to deserve such gratitude. Wild presents the gift. A handmade dream catcher unfolds across the counter. Lin spots it quickly, and the familiar handmade design carries his thoughts far back to the world he once inhabited, before mysteriously arriving in Nuogen. Years before his crossing, he attended a folk culture event and learned about dream catchers from a Native American elder. According to the legend, he remembers the night air carries countless dreams, while the woven net captures nightmares and allows gentler visions to pass. The elder also described their deeper symbolism. Those stories taught Lin that dreams could hold wisdom and make stronger a person's inner link. Returning to the present, Lin shares what he remembers and surprises Wild with knowledge way beyond anything the masked scholar expected him to possess. Wild confirms that dream catchers are rare magical tools whose true value comes from the dreams accumulated inside their nets. Lin studies the hand-woven gift and admits the endless rain has recently disturbed his sleep. The timing seems perfect. Behind his mask, Wild believes Lin understands the gift. He considers it an honor to provide the bookstore owner with something genuinely useful, never revealing the lethal test hidden inside the harmless decoration. The dream world can instantly crush anyone below the overwhelming rank, yet Wild believes a being at Lin's level may find the experience pleasurable. Satisfied with his offering, Wild tips his hat and departs into the rain. G drops through the rain with no safe ground beneath her. Max catches the platform with his chain and gives her one chance to land. But before she can recover, he warns that a wizard has turned the ruins into a death trap. The hooded caster begins an ancient spell. Golden power gathers around his staff. G charges. A summoned serpent lunges from her blind side. The huge snake opens its jaws around G in midair, yet she calmly raises one hand and meets the coming down fangs without trying to dodge. Its bite closes directly over her palm. G smiles and releases the beast blood sleeping inside her body. Her change erupts. The serpent finds itself staring into the eye of a far greater predator. Watching from below, the wounded wizard coughs blood and won't believe that any hunter could enter animalization while keeping complete control of her mind. His allies realize Helix on purpose concealed this terrifying growth from them. G becomes a huge white wolf and roars into the storm. Her attendant watches in awe. Every hunter dreams of wielding this power, and G may finally lead their entire kind to a new future. Yet the win belongs partly to the strange person who guided her, leaving the young woman desperate to understand who could be waiting on 23rd Street. Max tells her not to overthink it. Their duty is to support G and share the glory of whatever she becomes. G faces the enemy again. 3 hooded wizards combine their power and invoke Living Blaze. The spell condenses into a storm of burning lances that tears through the rain and floods the nearby street with enough fire to erase an ordinary hunter. G launches her changed body through the magical barrage. The base of the tower vanishes inside a violent explosion. Smoke swallows everything. That is when the white wolf emerges with her fangs exposed. A blazing magical seal catches G inside a web of golden force before she can reach the casters, pouring destructive energy across her huge body. The attack engulfs her from head to tail. Even the ruled beast form feels the pressure. Max exploits the opening. While G holds the enemy's attention, her ally strikes from behind and detonates another explosion among the unsuspecting wizards. But the surviving observers can't believe that anyone in Nuagen can control animalization so perfectly, since even the infamous Wild has never done it. One cold voice quietly corrects them by saying Wild hasn't achieved it yet. Helix tells UI to approach his former teacher, Wild, unaware that G's changed body is already coming down behind him. A hollow court wolf attacks. The dream beast teleports through the battle and smashes directly into Helix. Its jaws close around Helix and spill his blood across the flooded street, demonstrating why the hollow court wolves are feared for much more than speed. The wounded Helix curses his attacker. Helix vaults above the beast and prepares an attack. The wolf senses powerful magic, but Helix drops onto its back with a weapon raised. His blade sinks deep into the wolf's neck, but she endures the wound twists under him and gathers enough strength to reverse their positions. Its golden eye sharpens. The wolf tears through Helix's arm and sends him stumbling away. Helix smiles. Dark energy gathers into a pulsing sphere above his hand. Knowing he will die if the battle continues, Helix abandons victory and activates Force Leap, but the escape may further damage his already wounded body. He reappears among his followers, who quickly ask whether he survived intact. Helix claims he is fine and admits the store owner on 23rd Street is more powerful than they expected. He resets his shattered arm. G's change is only part of the reason for his concern. By consuming Ryan's soul, she gained access to his entire intel network and turned the traitor's stolen knowledge into a weapon against everyone who trusted him. Those details helped G to locate Helix and his hidden forces with perfect accuracy, but instead of scaring him, the discovery makes Helix more and more curious about the bookstore owner behind her change. He gives UI a new order. The magical mirror egg materializes above his open hand as a black shell nearby a cold point of light. Helix tells UI to look into the store owner, declares him more important than Wild, and wonders what kind of heart will later hatch from the waiting egg. UI calls the unborn being a dream beast. From inside a vision of huge teeth, another voice names it, God, the real God. After surviving another exhausting day, Lin finally locks the bookstore. His books and unfinished notes remain waiting on the desk. He climbs to the small room upstairs, wanting nothing more than sleep. Everything seems normal as he goes straight to bed, but that peace will not last. Lin enters the bedroom and closes the door behind him. The lights go out. He hangs Wild's dreamcatcher directly above the bed and admires its craftsmanship even without thinking about the spiritual meaning attached to it. The gift reminds him of Wild's amazing gargoyle, and Lin decides that the old scholar deserves another talk about his amazing talent when he returns. With everything ready, Lin settles under the blanket. He wishes himself good night and waits for sleep. His eyes remain open. They slowly close. Above his motionless body, the dreamcatcher begins glowing with pale green light as its hidden magic draws Lin's mind into the dreams stored inside its woven net. A white flake lands on his open palm. Lin realizes he must be dreaming. The strange noise, the scares warm. Rather than fear the impossible sensation, he studies the new world with quiet interest. He finds himself standing inside an endless winter forest where ash-like snow drifts through the darkness without bringing cold pain or any sense of danger. The sight is amazing. An ancient tree towers above the forest at a size no living tree could ever reach. Someone sleeps under it. A white-haired elven woman rests against the huge trunk like she has been waiting there across an age of snow. Right then, a strangely familiar melody stirs inside Lin's heart and names the sleeping figure the crowned queen of the sweet cold north. The song surrounds her with a carpet of needles and a crown formed from snow. Holding a white flower, Lin decides the entire scene resembles a fairy tale and admits Wild was telling the truth about the dreamcatcher. Lin smiles. He spots the experience as lucid dreaming, a state where thought and memory remain intact while every sensation feels real. Lin assumes Wild's answer planted a powerful idea in his mind, allowing his own hopes to construct the enchanted forest and everything now standing inside it. Since this is his dream, he figures he can do whatever he pleases. Ordinary dream figures rarely possess such clear features, yet the sleeping woman's face appears precise, detailed, and strangely familiar. For a moment, Lin's imagination runs wild. Lin reminds himself that anything can happen inside a dream. Curiosity finally overcomes restraint, and he approaches the sleeping stranger to examine the impossibly vivid face his unconscious mind has seemingly created in complete detail. The elven woman remains peaceful under the tree. Lin leans closer while his heart pounds with embarrassing intensity. He brings the flower forward. Lin reaches to her with the borrowed blossom, reasoning that ownership means little when both the flower and the woman belong to a dream. Her violet eyes suddenly open under his hand. Lin tries to reassure himself that nothing matters here because she should still be an unconscious creation. The direct gaze makes him freeze. The woman rises as the ancient tree rustles behind her. Magic clothes her. Lin tumbles backward and stares up from the snow. Now fully awake and dressed like a winter queen, the strange elf asks Lin who he is, shattering his cozy guess that she can't think alone. Lin is startled that she asks the first question. Lin assumes the strange world belongs to his dream. The white-haired woman agrees, but her calm answer makes him question that belief. At first, he treats her like a projection created by his sleeping mind. Feeling safe inside his own dream, he decides it is his turn to ask questions. Lin requests her identity and won't accept Dreamer as an answer. He quickly feels slightly intrusive. The white-haired woman introduces herself as Silver. Lin is baffled that she offers only a single name, yet Silver's playful smile shows that she considers the exchange fair. She reminds him that his question has been answered. Now Silver takes her turn. Her smile feels almost too charming. Silver says she has remained here for so long that even the passage of time has lost all meaning. One hand rests over her heart as she describes an existence with no calendar changing seasons or familiar voice to mark how many years have passed. Unfortunately, the flower garden is beautiful, but its eternal silence resembles death more than peace. Silver asks Lin to explain her emptiness. Lin considers the problem. His mind instantly transforms the moment into a romantic fairy tale where a kind gentleman rescues an elegant woman with perfectly chosen words. The dreamer places his sleeping clothes with a formal suit, allowing Lin to embrace the familiar role of counselor while quietly enjoying the dramatic atmosphere. He steps forward and adjusts his new appearance. Lin offers Silver his hand with a comforting smile. Silver hesitates. When she accepts, Lin is startled by the genuine coldness of her fingers. The physical sensation makes the meeting feel even more real, while the fragile hand in his palm shows a being alone that no elaborate dream scenery can conceal. Lin guides Silver down beside the ancient tree. He asks if she has always been alone in this dream world. Silver answers softly. Her vulnerability strikes directly at Lin's romantic mind. Lin imagines an immortal woman trapped forever inside a beautiful garden, and the sad scene feels like a fairy tale. Lin regrets that she is only a dream. He says endless solitude has left her trapped with nothing but her own thoughts, causing being alone to deepen into painful isolation. Silver admits that nobody understands her. Lin studies the truth slowly. But Lin calls her endless thinking a sign of inner beauty and says even God would smile at someone with such deep thoughts. The surprising praise touches Silver more deeply than his direct answer. She blushes and covers her mouth. Perhaps thought no longer needs to hurt. Lin asks if she agrees with his answer. Silver laughs softly, and a welcome warmth returns to the face that centuries of silence had seemingly frozen under the endless falling snow. Lin relaxes when he sees her respond. He assures Silver that the praise is sincere rather than a polite attempt to comfort her. Silver turns away shyly. Lin jokes that philosophers are still allowed to praise people. His humor eases the remaining tension, and Lin realizes Silver is waiting for something more important than another clever read about being alone. He takes both of her hands and asks her to fulfill his sincerest wish. Lin asks Silver to become his friend. Their hands clasp. Silver struggles to understand what friendship would mean after so much isolation. Lin suggests they share stories with each other since companionship may bring her more happiness than endlessly staring at the same beautiful scenery alone. The idea of sharing quickly awakens his store owner instincts, and Lin decides that even a dream is no excuse to miss some advice. Concentrating on his memory, he creates a book between his hands. Lin offers her the book. Silver receives a dream copy of Grimm's fairy tales as a present from her new friend. The simple gift crushes her because nobody has brought her anything or willingly remained to speak with her for an impossibly long time. Silver admits she owns nothing except the tree, its fruit, the nearby flowers, and their nectar, but offers Lin anything he wants. Her grateful smile is enough for him. Lin notices the golden fruit. Silver says it has no use for her, treating the impossible fruit as another property of the lucid dream worth testing. Lin asks if he can simply eat one without plan. Silver smiles and gives Lin her approval. A golden fruit drops neatly into Lin's hands. It shines like polished gold. Lin wonders how such a strange apple will taste. After taking a bite, he finds the flavor almost identical to an ordinary apple, and figures his mind copied the closest real counterpart. Silver watches anxiously and asks if it tastes good. Lin smiles and gives the fruit his approval. The dream suddenly fractures. He admits that his limited experience here makes any serious judgment impossible. As cracks spread through the tree and sky, Lin admits he must leave while the pull of waking tears his dream body apart. Silver reaches for him without speaking. She catches Lin before the falling dream can carry him away. Their eyes meet. Silver kisses him. When she pulls back, Silver smiles at Lin's stunned look and assures her new friend that the intimate farewell doesn't need to become their last meeting. Lin remains speechless as the fractured dream widens between them. Silver promises they can still meet in their dreams. Rain hides the anger of another man watching the bookstore from the shadows. Helix fails, so the cult sends someone new. The problem is that every powerful outsider who approached Lin has already paid a terrible price. G crushed their agents while Wild disappeared after suffering wounds no one could explain. Their shared link to the bookstore now feels far too planned to ignore. He orders the shop looked into. The chosen follower accepts the dangerous job without protest. A dark figure quickly races across the rain-soaked rooftops carrying orders to learn the bookstore owner's appearance, strength, and anything useful about him for the cult. His superior watches him depart while imagining what horrors may await. Another slow breath of smoke masks the cultist's unease. That is when John arrives under the pouring rain. He confirms that the coordinates have led him directly to the bookstore. John melts into a stretched shadow that slips under the entrance, allowing him to infiltrate the sealed building without touching the door at all. His magic senses find nothing more threatening than an ordinary bookstore. Even the horned statue near the stairs appears harmless. Its red eye quietly opens. John reaches the only location he hasn't yet searched. Because faint signs of life linger behind the door, he dismisses the job as embarrassingly simple and prepares to confront the sleeping owner. The apparent weakness of his target brings a cruel smile to John's face. He imagines killing Lin and reporting that everyone feared a completely ordinary man. Lin sleeps in peace among glowing flowers. The room suddenly unfolds into a vast garden of pale blossoms and dark crimson roots. John stares into the impossible dreamscape as grasping shadows surround his body, rip into his mind, and tear one eye from its socket. The terrified intruder staggers backward from the sleeping bookstore owner. His trembling hand still clings tightly to the doorknob. John's severed eye rolls across the floor. Laughing through blood and tears, he says his lord's servant has finally arrived. Outside, John's superior waits in the rain and grows suspicious because a simple search mission should never take such an efficient operative 30 minutes. Now he checks the time and wonders if the delay signals trouble. John's shadow abilities should have allowed an immediate escape from almost any danger. His bloodline makes that confidence seem fair. An approaching presence disturbs the puddles behind the waiting cultist. Still expecting John to return, the cult leader reaches for another cigarette and considers handling the problem himself. He realizes someone has already extinguished his smoke in the dark, rain-filled alley. Alarmed, the cultist ignites the entire cigarette pack with an explosive fire spell. Flames consume the narrow alley. The heavy rain weakens his magic, forcing him to retreat before the unseen enemy closes in. John erupts from the darkness in a warped shadow form, pursuing his former superior. with a speed that leaves no safe route through the alley. Bladed tendrils sweep to the fleeing cultist. Their impact hurls him violently against the brick wall. Shadow spears pin his limbs. But despite his wounds, the cultist summons a roaring inferno around the changed John. He tears himself free and mocks the monster for believing that a few shadow blades could finish a skilled firecaster like himself. With one hand raised, the cultist pours even more power into the flames surrounding John. The shadowy body appears to break apart inside the blaze. The cultist senses something behind him. His confidence collapses as a new presence rises beyond the fire. A skeletal claw slices through the inferno, revealing that the creature possessing John has survived the flames and continued changing into something vastly larger. The huge skull-faced horror towers over the wounded cultist, with crimson light blazing from its empty eyes. Facing certain death, the cultist spots that John has become the servant of another lord. News soon reaches the Scarlet Cult. The cult's scarred leader is stunned to hear that Mr. UI has been killed. A hooded messenger presents photographs and spell analysis proving that black wizards from the Scarlet Cult personally documented the blood-soaked scene that night. The leader studies every detail with growing anger. The report says UI sent John to look into the bookstore on 23rd Street only for John to return and murder him. An unknown parasite corrupted John's mind. The cult can't identify the entity that changed him after the bookstore visit. Unable to measure the enemy and unwilling to endanger their greater goal, the messenger suggests leaving the search until the magical mirror egg hatches safely. The scarred leader finally orders everyone to cooperate with that cautious plan. As he leaves, he privately marvels at the bookstore owner's ruthless response. The egg must hatch without interference. No matter how powerful Lin may be, the leader won't let anything obstruct his plans. The impossible dream breaks apart into drifting light. Lin opens his eyes and finds himself back in bed. Morning makes the meeting with Silver feel almost unreal, but the strange decoration above him proves the night may have meant more than he thinks. Outside the windows, another endless downpour greets the new day. Lin remembers Silver's parting promise. The clock shows that he has awakened at 6:30. While brushing his teeth, Lin feels a new point inside his mouth and pauses his morning routine to look into the surprising change for himself. He slowly brushes around the sensitive spot. A quick search shows a small pointed tooth that wasn't there before. Lin blames the change on Inky. Unable to understand what Inky considers a blessing, he dismisses the mystery for now. After dressing and opening the bookstore, Lin notices an unnatural silence where Colin's loud television normally fills the nearby room with constant noise. He glances to his guest with quiet concern. Colin is sitting stiffly instead of watching his favorite programs. Now Lin wonders if he became sick. The scared man is drenched in a sweat and close to tears. When polite knocks fail to gain Colin's attention, Lin steps closer and tries again, unaware that every small movement is scaring his guest. Colin jolts violently when Lin finally reaches him. Lin asks what happened and points out that the television is strangely silent. Colin expects this behavior to get him killed. That is when he hurriedly turns on the television and apologizes for neglecting it. The broadcast reports a man's death under search by the Tower of Secret Rites, while Lin assumes the miserable weather probably caused another accident. Still worried, Lin advises Colin to rest and enjoy his life. Colin takes the kindness as a veiled warning and silently begs for mercy. He believes Lin knows everything. Another gentle call of his name makes Colin freeze. Colin swallows his panic and answers as calmly as he can while preparing to call someone who might save him. Hidden from view, he sends an urgent message to Vincent of the Church of the Dome. With the message delivered, Colin knows regret can no longer help him. He imagines Vincent as his savior. Panting heavily, Colin says that nothing is wrong. Lin studies the strange show and becomes more and more certain that his guest is hiding a serious problem behind that unconvincing smile this morning. He considers checking on Colin again once the man has calmed down. The entrance opens before Lin can look into further. A young red-haired customer steps inside. She compares the bookstore with the location described in her father's documents. From under her cap, the girl slowly examines Lin, searching his ordinary appearance for any trace of the powerful figure her father described. Lin welcomes her and offers help. She remains silent while measuring the distance between them. His friendliness leaves her briefly lost. The entire bookstore feels far too normal to match her hopes. When Lin welcomes her to browse, the girl approaches the counter and bluntly asks if he is truly the owner of the store. Lin confirms it and says she may borrow, purchase, or simply read the books. Nothing about his courteous manner appears amazing. She resents her father's dramatic warning. Testing Lin's offer, the girl asks if she may request anything. Lin smiles at the bold question and agrees in principle, but he makes clear that he can't honor any demand that becomes unreasonable. His cautious condition makes the girl consider her wording. She asks Lin to arm wrestle with her. The request makes no sense to him. Lin studies her good manners, sturdy build, expensive clothes, and well-kept appearance. The more he thinks about her surprising challenge, the more lost he becomes about why a girl from a prosperous family entered his bookstore. He silently searches for a sensible answer. An image of stern Joseph suddenly forms behind the girl. The link becomes obvious. She waits impatiently for Lin's answer. Lin agrees to arm wrestle, but only after she answers several questions that will confirm why she came and what Joseph taught her. The girl warily asks what he wants to know. First, Lin asks if Joseph sent her. His accuracy shocks her. Lin calmly says her resemblance to Joseph made the answer obvious. The girl's indignant denial only strengthens the match, especially when Lin imagines father and daughter shouting with exactly the same stubborn look before him. Certain of their connection, Lin asks if she frequently challenges other people to arm wrestling matches. She sips her drink as she thinks about the question. Her answer quickly worries Lin. She says weak people can be forced to compete even after refusing. Her casual answer of provoking opponents into fights makes Lin wonder how Joseph managed to raise such a cheerful girl with the mindset of a soldier. Lin scratches his head and considers how to respond. Moments later, he finally accepts the challenge, delighting Joseph's daughter. Lin resolves to correct her attitude. Across the table, the girl senses terrifying pressure from someone she believed was only class 1. They plant their elbows, lock hands, and begin the contest as Lin silently apologizes to Joseph for refusing to hold back against his daughter. For one tense moment, their joined hands remain upright above the counter. Lin quickly slams her hand against the wood. The stunned girl can't accept her defeat. Joseph's daughter stares at Lin because she has never lost like this before. She cannot understand how an ordinary store owner overpowered her so easily. This is a girl who defeated 10 people at 6 and later reached panicky rank. Yet Lin only rubs his wrist and tells her that she is very strong. He claims the opening stalemate forced him to exert real effort. Her fighting spirit quickly returns. Refusing to accept the first result, the girl demands another match. They clasp hands once more and she pours every ounce of strength into defeating the smiling man who barely looks trying. Her arm trembles violently under the strain. Lin easily holds her in place while privately finding her stubborn show rather adorable. His effortless smile says everything. The second defeat leaves Joseph's daughter collapse miserably across the counter. When Lin notices her scared look, he says a reckless challenge against someone holding a knife could have ended with her immediate death. But he advises her to judge every opponent slowly instead of provoking strangers without understanding the danger. The chastened girl complains that Lin is being mean. Lin spots a deeper problem. Without someone correcting her behavior, this habit of starting fights could later leave the girl bitter and corrupted. Determined to guide Joseph's daughter back to a better path, Lin considers their agreement fulfilled, and finally asks why she actually entered his bookstore. She admits that she wants to borrow something. Lin naturally assumes she came looking for a certain book. She wants Joseph's strange book. After secretly reading half of it and nearly getting caught, she hopes another copy will reveal the ending. Her nervous excuses tell Lin that she is terrified of confronting her father, but an honest talk might resolve the entire mix-up between them. But another copy is available. Lin suggests speaking honestly with Joseph before borrowing it. She says Joseph would only become furious. Lin gently argues that her father might understand if she asks properly. That idea unleashes years of anger as the girl says Joseph criticizes every school result and always boasts about his own childhood wins. Lin finally realizes education is the true source of their conflict. He begins gathering books while she watches. Lin imagines Joseph as a battle-hardened father who can't express affection, leaving every anxious reprimand to sound like rejection in his daughter's ears. The answer becomes painfully obvious. If the child keeps misbehaving, Lin reasons that she simply hasn't been studying enough. He selects a brutal SAT study guide, confident that rigorous schoolwork can cure rebellion, while also improving the girl's connection with her demanding father. Several math buffs soon join the growing pile. Lin adds physics and chemistry for good measure. The teacher embraces his favorite solution. Proud of his improvised curriculum, Lin presents the stack as the perfect set for earning Joseph's praise. The girl remembers how her father always compared her progress with his past, claiming that he had already reached panicky rank at her age. Lin says Joseph just wants his daughter to grow, because he believes he understands the awkward father. Lin offers his comforting meaning with complete confidence. Hope brightens the girl's face. She asks if these books can make her stronger and finally win her father's approval. Mistaking her question for interest in physical training manuals, Lin promises that the books can grant power if she accepts the pain of serious study. That is when his innocent promise suddenly awakens something beyond grasp. Golden light erupts under her hands. Her mind is pulled into darkness as a radiant doorway appears above her. A strange voice commands her not to fear, telling that opening this forbidden door needs a price her future self will someday appreciate. The world breaks apart around her. She crashes back into reality under the bookstore's towering shelves. Wondering whether she has died, the girl realizes instead that the very substance forming her soul has been replaced by something completely different. A golden master key appears. Inside the concept of a knight, this gift can locate any ability she needs without bottlenecks or restrictions standing in her way. The impossible change makes her believe Lin has casually exceeded common sense and created an entirely new version of her through powers she can't fathom. Lin notices the change and offers help. He figures she simply struggles with math. Colin witnesses everything in horror. While Lin talks about adding trial tests if her grades fail to improve, the girl hears a terrifying master calmly planning further horrible suffering. Believing defiant children secretly crave support, Lin praises her talent and promises that hard work will give her the power to change everything. She exhales and gathers her courage. The books now resemble sacred teachings from a supreme being, with the bookstore owner serving as their herald and guide. The girl finally lets go of her anger and thanks Lin for guiding her. She bows deeply, thanks Lin for his tolerance and guidance, apologizes for her misconduct, and promises never to disappoint him again. Lin marvels at her dramatic change and proudly figures SAT plan books truly are the ultimate natural enemy of every stubborn and unruly child. He praises her new humility and curiosity. Carrying the huge stack, she leaves the bookstore and steps into the rain. That is when doubt briefly returns. After wondering why she originally came to borrow a book, Joseph's daughter forgets the question, smiles intensely, and hurries home to begin studying quickly. Ji wakes to desperate voices ordering her to run. She bolts upright, but the pain and blood prove the escape is not over. Her first fear is not for herself, because Max and Kay may still be trapped. Before she can learn what happened, she realizes the portal carried her somewhere unknown. A beautiful blonde elf enters the room. Relief arrives with her. The injured hunter slowly asks if this stranger saved her. The elf says she recently arrived in Nuojin and never expected the city's violent ether fluctuations to affect her sensitive race so severely. While returning from buying groceries, she discovered Jijishu unconscious and covered in blood. The scene made it obvious that someone was hunting her. Jijishu had collapsed nearby. The elf carried her inside before the pursuing forces could discover them. Ji warns that the enemies hunting her may also discover Doris. Doris says elves are natural hunters and assures Ji that she hit every track. She promises to repay this surprising kindness. She asks about the time. Judging from the blood around Jijiksu when she was found, the elf estimates that several dangerous hours have already passed. Jishu remembers that a tired traveler can't control portal destinations and realizes every repeated jump could easily have killed her on arrival. She credits Lin's gift of an unbreakable will for helping her body survive the continuous strain. Far away, Lin suddenly senses something unusual. Ji refuses to give up because corrupted blood healed her wounds, though her tired body still needs rest. Doris praises Ji's amazing healing ability. After praising that amazing healing ability, the women formally introduce themselves as Hunter Jishu and pure-blooded elf Doris of Azir's ancient Iris family. Doris says she came to Nuojin searching for the lost glory of her sacred lineage. Ji remembers the Iris family as the noblest elves whose kingdom fell after King Candela went mad. She recalls that the family vanished centuries ago and realizes Doris came to find a witch. Doris names Silver as one of 4 original witches who sleeps inside a frozen dream world. Elves once sought that witch through Walpurgis Night, but the tradition vanished centuries ago. Ji realizes Doris is searching for Lady Silver. Ji argues that the Order's ether network would detect a dream world large enough to cover Nuojin. Doris admits that she does not understand how the prophecy can be true. The prophecy says Lady Silver will descend on the City of Steel and bless those favored by the stars. That prophecy is the only lead Doris has. Ji asks how long Doris plans to remain in Nuojin. She warns that Nuojin is not safe for elves. Ji points to the dangerous situation spreading through the city. Doris mistakes the warning for concern about the rain and cheerfully dismisses the weather as harmless. Doris says she can easily handle harsh conditions. Jishu chooses to conceal what happened because revealing the truth could make the already dangerous situation even harder to control. She simply advises Doris to stay inside for the next few days. Ji says hunters walk between life and death so innocent people can sleep in peace. She says hunters have followed that duty since ancient times. Doris is thrilled because those principles match the teachings of her forefathers. Her dramatic excitement nearly ruins the meal. A slowly prepared bowl of soup reaches Jijishu. It was made for patience. Doris proudly adds that every ingredient is fresh and was only recently delivered. As Ji accepts the warm soup, she realizes another capable hunter in Nuojin may know something about Lady Silver. She asks Doris for any leads about Lady Silver. Jishu admits that she can't answer the question herself. Ji tells Doris to visit the bookstore on 23rd Street because Lin can give her an answer. Doris is surprised that another expert may know about Lady Silver. Ji describes Lin as a mysterious man whose insight and lessons spread through the hidden world like sacred teaching. Even after everything she has experienced, Jijushu admits she still can't see through his hidden plans. Doris becomes intensely curious about the strange store owner. Her research offers no answers. Ji says Lin lives apart from the world yet guided her through the darkest point in her life. Inside the bookstore, Lin suddenly sneezes. Doris recognizes Ji's devotion as the same faith her people have kept in Lady Silver for millions of years. Doris suddenly strips the startled hunter. Ji blushes in complete shock. Inspecting the exposed skin, Doris remembers the terrible injuries covering Ji Shuquan when she first carried the unconscious hunter inside. Only minutes after awakening, every scar has vanished, while the clear life force of a dream beast's blood now courses through her changed body. Doris figures Lin must be very strange. Ji Shuchu calls him the most benevolent person she has ever met and describes this miraculous restoration as just one of his casual gifts. Doris chooses to visit him. For now, she pushes Jishu to remain in the house, recover from her fatigue, change clothes, and enjoy the hot water already prepared. Jishuchu gratefully accepts the generous kindness and apologizes for burdening Doris after everything the elf has already done for her. Clean clothing and a warm bath await her. As she soaks, Jishu notices the corrupted appendages have vanished and resolves to regain her strength before properly repaying Doris. She thanks her absent rescuer. Jishu Tree privately marvels at how gentle Doris seems. Elsewhere in the house, Doris calmly washes blood from her hands beside a cleaver and stained packages, revealing a disturbing contrast under her kindness. An otherworldly light surrounds her as the pleasant smile turns calculating. Doris decides that if Lin is a fraud, then the people who trusted him will make him pay. She prepares to dispose of the kitchen scraps. Among the discarded remains lies the severed skull of a monstrous horned creature. The plotters have lost their best tracker and patience is running out. A terrified follower identifies him as Barker, the abnormal rank hunter called the Chaser. His leader only wants one answer and demands to know where Barker vanished. Unfortunately, nobody in the room knows. The answer earns him a hand around the throat. Panic fills the room. The furious leader curses the Scarlet Cult for failing to explain how Barker vanished. Gasping under the crushing grip, the terrified messenger begs for another chance to locate the missing targets before his enraged superior kills him. He quickly promises to continue the search. The leader suddenly changes subjects and asks about Charles. This report is much more promising. The Scarlet Cult's pre-Cant Murphy revived Charles and filled his mind with the will to fight for their cause. The leader smiles because Ryan's notes reveal that Charles was Wild's favorite first disciple, which makes the revived man a perfect weapon. Their plot finally has suitable bait for the ancient dark wizard. They hope Charles can supply the immense energy needed to hatch the magical mirror egg. Snow covers a distant mountain. Long ago, a younger Wild crossed the frozen wilderness alone while seeking the legendary master of dark magic. Under the jaws of a huge fossilized beast, he formally requests a private audience with Slater Augustus, the legendary ancient king of giants. Wild announces himself without allowing fear to weaken his voice. Augustus answers from beyond the ordinary world and quickly addresses the visitor as his disciple. Augustus says he may be called a living fossil, but his body has not fully turned to stone. Wild is stunned as his ancient master's power rises. Augustus has resisted the corruption and decay that slowly consume other dark wizards. Purple energy surges through the frozen remains. The colossal king manifests before his possible student. He calls Wild his disciple again. Years later, a proud Wild presents the completed gargoyle to Augustus as proof of everything his training and research have finally produced. His ancient master slowly examines the miniature construct hovering above a complex magical formation, judging whether years of dangerous research have produced a worthy result. The gargoyle spreads its wings and answers Wild's command. Wild anxiously awaits the final judgment. Fate chooses his path. Augustus says Wild has graduated and can now walk the world as a free dark wizard. Overwhelmed by status, Wild bows deeply before the mentor whose approval once mattered more than anything and accepts the uncertain future opening before him. He gratefully thanks Augustus for every lesson. The master warns his final disciple never to forget his own destiny, though the jubilant young wizard can't yet understand those important words. Wild fully accepts his new identity. Strange, powerful, and elegant, the newly free black-scaled Sir Wild visits an orphanage while maintaining every detail of his fearsome image. When a caretaker guides him through the crowded residence, Wild notices one lonely and scared child sitting apart from everyone else and asks for the boy's name. The recently abandoned child has no name. Wild approaches, introduces himself as a dark wizard, and calmly speaks to the trembling boy. The child calls him Mr. Wild. Tears begin falling from the orphan's scared eyes. Wild lifts the abandoned boy into his arms and declares him a cherished disciple who will never again need to fear suffering or dying alone. He gives the nameless child the name Charles. From that moment, Charles becomes Wild's first disciple, beginning a bond made closer than family through the dark tradition of passing knowledge by language. Wild later accepts another disciple named Ui and believes his mastery will always be enough to protect them both. That confidence ends in blood when Charles is murdered before his teacher can save him. Wild later finds and kills the dark wizard behind it, but Charles's missing body and soul make even Augustus powerless to perform a revival. Losing Charles becomes Wild's irreversible sin. The painful memory finally releases the sleeping wizard. Wild awakens wondering whether fate guided him to Lin, and whether Augustus always knew the gargoyle would someday become payment for Lin's strange book. Only now does he understand his teacher's warning and regret that his younger self lacked even half of Augustus's wisdom. Despite centuries of amazing power and painful thought, Wild remains trapped by the past and secretly continues hoping that fate might someday grant him an impossible miracle. His hidden residence should be completely hidden, because only Wild and Charles have ever entered this safest refuge in all of Nuojin. A familiar voice calls from outside. Wild's hand trembles against the table. Green spiritual light rises from his skull and butterfly familiars as every instinct warns that the impossible visitor can't truly be Charles. Outside in the rain, the revived disciple promises to wait until his teacher comes for him exactly as Wild once did at the orphanage. Emotion crushes caution as Wild grips the doors and pulls them open. Charles collapses while whispering for his teacher. Wild steps into the rain. He kneels beside the unconscious man, touches the familiar face, and finds the old scars that confirm the disciple he mourned for centuries. Unable to contain the impossible joy and grief crashing together inside him, the ancient dark wizard weeps openly as rain streams across his smiling face. Lin studies his reflection because something about his face has changed. The difference is small, but he believes it may make people trust him more easily. He even imagines strangers confessing their troubles the moment they see him. For a moment, the idea of dressing like a priest seemed almost perfect. The thought reminds Lin of an old cautionary tale. A knock at the door cuts off the thought before Lin can ask Inky. The visitor is surprised that the shop is still closed, while the storm keeps raging. Lin begins his familiar greeting before discovering that Wild has crossed the terrible weather and arrived at the bookstore soaked from head to toe. The soaked visitor looks more corpse than customer. Rain streams from Wild as he quietly greets the store owner. Lin welcomes his frozen guest. He jokes that sleeping any longer might have left the elderly scholar freezing outside. While preparing something warm, Lin privately notes that old Wiley has been visiting unusually often and must be struggling with a serious personal problem. The timing gives Lin the perfect chance to share his story. A steaming cup soon rests between the two men. Lin calls him Old Wiley. He asks if Wild knows the farmer and the snake. Lin admits that the tale is extremely simple, yet its lesson remains valuable enough to remember whenever kindness begins clouding a person's judgment. The story begins with a snake frozen beside a road. A kind farmer discovers the dying creature and saves it. The rescued snake strikes. Its venom kills the very man whose warmth preserved its life. When Lin asks who deserves blame, Wild answers that the snake's cruel nature matters more than the farmer's generous but far too naive plans. The masked scholar senses a deeper meaning behind the question. He realizes this harmless folktale is actually a warning. Thunder seals the realization. Wild grips his cup as Lin's message reaches him. Lin calmly praises his rational answer before telling that the farmer's greatest mistake was refusing to recognize the creature warming against his chest. The store owner's gentle smile makes the lesson feel ominous. Wild listens with the focus of a condemned man. Blind kindness invites betrayal. Lin warns him against trusting appearances or deceiving himself about dangerous people. Wild wonders if anyone can live without a heart, and the answer is obvious. Lin raises his cup and lets the warning settle. Moments later, Wild finally voices his agreement. Lin approves. Wild mistakes the simple exchange for a slowly prepared intervention. Meanwhile, Lin assumes his troubled elderly customer must be facing family problems involving two estranged adopted sons and relatives, suddenly circling around a legacy. That guess leaves Lin to mention Charles directly. Wild confirms that his long-absent disciple has returned. Lin quickly believes he understands the situation. He imagines greedy relatives reappearing when a lonely elder falls ill and a legacy becomes available. Lin warns that the Charles who returned may be completely different from Wild's precious memories, and could be offering affectionate words only to secure hidden benefits. What Wild truly wants is the beloved child preserved in his memories. Lin asks if he will shelter a viper for sentiment's sake. Wild finally accepts the truth. He remembers the cheerful disciple who once rushed into his workshop. Even after being scolded for entering without approval, young Charles clung warmly to his master and filled their stern laboratory with surprising warmth. Those childish displays once made control nearly impossible. Wild also remembers entrusting experiments to his eager student. The cherished memories lose their spell. He admits that longing made him embrace an obvious deception just to relive those vanished days. With one hand against his mask, Wilde decides the dream must end, and that whatever should have remained dead must now die again. He thanks Lin for another invaluable lesson and promises to act. Lin pushes him to settle the painful family matter before doubt becomes permanent regret. Wilde promises to deal with Charles and never give him another chance. He returns alone to his hidden underground residence. Inside, the revived Charles secretly reports through a glowing circle that he has earned Wilde's trust and will soon obtain the remaining forbidden spells. His deadly smile accompanies a pledge to the Scarlet Cult. The magical link suddenly vanishes. Wilde has returned. He orders Charles to fetch the offering knife from storage. Charles innocently asks about the coming spell, while Wilde claims he needs to conduct a test and prepare everything with his disciples' help. Wilde sends him ahead and promises they will work together shortly. Charles eagerly agrees and promises to do his best. Wilde takes the knife. He vows to extract every useful secret before killing the imposter himself. The offering blade crashes into Charles with savage force, spraying blood across the cold floor before the shocked traitor can possibly defend himself. Charles stares at his master in disbelief as life leaves him. His broken body collapses heavily onto the stone. Wilde grants his child peace. Rain pounds the chapel while Lady Murphy prays before a blood-stained altar. At first, Murphy's prayer before the blood-stained altar seems to unfold exactly as planned. Crimson power rises through the sigil and fills the dark chamber. But the light becomes unstable before Murphy can finish. Cracks suddenly race through the chamber around Murphy. The chapel detonates. Murphy throws up an arm against the violent blast. Hooded helpers race to the wreckage as a deafening collapse shakes the grounds and leaves them wondering what could have caused such damage. Smoke rolls across the rain-soaked courtyard. The helpers discover that the entire prayer chamber has vanished. Murphy survives. Her followers find her standing injured among the shattered stone. Bruised and furious, Murphy realizes the backlash nearly killed her and can't understand how Wilde shattered a scheme built around his deepest bond. But she asks herself in panic what went wrong. Her thoughts return to the plot that began around the forbidden coffin of eternal rest. Her signature artifact made it possible. The proposal came from Ui, Wilde's deadly second disciple. Ui proposed reviving Charles as an obedient puppet who could approach Wilde unnoticed and turn a beloved son's face into the perfect weapon. Murphy dismissed his anger to Wilde and jealousy of the favored first disciple as personal grievances. She wouldn't risk herself without an important reward. Ui changed tactics. He said her magical mirror egg feeds on life force. Because Joseph had already wounded Wilde in a deadly battle, Ui offered the incredibly rare life force of a weakened destructive rank wizard as bait. His master's weak condition created an irresistible chance. The promised prize finally caught Murphy's interest. She joined the plot. Yet Wilde returned after only half an hour and killed Charles without doubt. Back among the ruins, Murphy summons a wall of purple energy and activates the forbidden artifact to repair the damage caused by her falling plan. The pendant at her throat invokes the coffin of eternal rest. The chained bone-shaped coffin awakens with violet light. Blood revival begins. A searing beam of restorative power pierces Murphy's chest. As the forbidden ritual restores her battered body, Murphy swears that she will remember Wilde's painful humiliation and repay him for taking down everything. An attendant cuts off to announce a surprising visitor named Helix. The White Wolf leader seemingly knows why her operation failed. Helix bows before her. He claims repeated visits have finally earned him this long-desired audience. Murphy cuts through his rehearsed praise and demands that the White Wolf leader abandon the empty small talk before her remaining patience disappears. She questions both his confidence and his suspiciously early arrival from the hunter's territory. Helix begins sweating under her hostile stare. Her destructive aura erupts. Crushed by the pressure, Helix struggles to keep speaking. Despite the danger, he tells Murphy that the person truly to blame for the entire disastrous operation's failure is none other than Murphy herself. He asks if she remembers the abandoned evidence. Murphy recalls flesh belonging to a powerful but short-lived dream parasite. Murphy ordered that inquiry abandoned. Helix shows that Wilde visited the same bookstore only half an hour earlier. He identifies the strange bookstore owner as the hidden culprit behind Wilde's sudden change of heart and the complete damage of Murphy's plan. Lin is recording his strange dream when a visitor interrupts him. He greets her eagerly and promises to help with anything his bookstore can offer. At first, he is simply amazed by the beautiful stranger before him. That is when he notices her pointed ears and realizes a real elf may have entered his shop. Lin can barely believe that an elf stands before him. Old fantasies return. Memories of fantasy stories leave Lin fascinated by her almost too real appearance. The elf studies his look and mistakes his delighted curiosity for a strange mix of surprise, respect, and caution. She secretly scans the entire bookstore with her ether sense. Her search shows that Lin somehow has 40 genuine teeth. Doris suspects Lin is an ancient immortal trapped in human form after paying a terrible price for his knowledge. A surprising ether reflux suddenly cuts off her examination. The Iris family spirits tremble as the clear aura of Lady Silver, the original witch, floods around the startled visitor inside the bookstore. Her pounding heart confirms that the sacred presence is genuine. She traces the strange aura to a bedroom on the second floor. Doris realizes Lady Silver's dream world aura has descended into the bookstore and blessed someone inside. She figures Lady Silver personally blessed the young store owner. Every clue matches an ancient prophecy telling a favored one chosen by the great witch who rules the snow and commands the dream world. The visitor believes Lady Silver guided her directly to Lin. She resolves to approach the favored one with extreme caution. The elf introduces herself as Doris. She says Jishu suggested the strange bookstore. Ji reportedly solved her own problems here and described the store owner with such intense reverence that she compared Lin directly to a god. Lin assumes his earlier motivational speech simply made Ji admire him like an idol. He denies being divine and calls himself an ordinary store owner. Doris mistakes humility for confirmation. She says Ji sent her here after hearing about the Iris family's crisis. The mention of a family crisis catches Lin's attention, and he begins connecting Doris's noble appearance with the rigid social structure nearby Nuogen. Her wealth and refined manner make an aristocratic problem seem perfectly plausible. Lin recalls that the central district houses the city's richest and oldest families between the upper and lower districts. Lin reaches an answer. He calmly asks Doris to explain her problem. Doris says her ancient family inherited the glory of the Iris bloodline through countless ages, but that proud legacy has steadily withered. The once prestigious house is now declining. Her family wants to reshape its past and make the Iris name bloom again. Lin takes her wording literally. Her unusual request reminds him of his former job. Lin once studied how different cultures preserve their art legends' history and traditions. He assumes the Iris family lost status after forgetting the meaning of its crest, and now wants him to reconstruct its history. Lin tells Doris that he understands her problem. A violent blue flash suddenly crashes through the bookstore windows. Lin shields his eyes against the huge glare. Still expecting ordinary business, Lin assumes the strange beam belongs to another customer trying to get his attention. That is when he notices the light is aimed straight at the bookstore. The strange phenomenon resembles a doorway from somewhere else. The intrusion feels openly hostile. Outside, official vehicles surround a nearby building under the pounding rain. Armed officers flood the street while searchlights sweep to the bookstore, changing the quiet area into the center of a sudden police operation. An officer accuses someone of illegal entry smuggling and using a false identity. Now Lin briefly wonders if the absurd charges could somehow involve his shop. The glare becomes unbearable. He considers using the disturbance to discover what conditions summon Inky. As Lin turns to the commotion outside, he prepares to look into the source of the blinding light and determine whether anyone needs help. Doris stops him and promises to handle the intruders before continuing their talk. The elven noble lady looks ready for battle. Lin freezes in doubt. He only wanted to look into the interruption himself. Lin assumes the officers probably came for Doris because she appeared so suddenly and might have entered Nuogen without finishing the proper small talk. Since she stood beside the window, he trusts that she understands the situation better. Doris instead believes the attackers have dared to target Lin's sacred bookstore. Neither understands the other. Lin offers to deal with the trouble rather than burden a customer. His sense of duty as a store owner outweighs his caution, even as he imagines the kind of hardened official waiting beyond the door. Doris admits the enemy outnumbers her, but considers only their leader dangerous and no longer fears exposing her identity. She promises to remove the lowlights permanently and earn Lin's approval. Lin fears offending her family. Unable to reject her determined offer, he gives in and agrees. Lin steps aside and asks Doris to stay safe because he believes she only plans to negotiate. Doris smiles because she believes she understands his hidden command perfectly. She takes the crisis as a test of the Iris family's resolve. The light reaches way beyond the street. A huge magic circle surrounds a blazing sphere above the district. Purple energy tears through stone and hurls huge debris skyward as the rapidly growing spell shakes the nearby city under the endless storm. The destructive orb continues gathering power over the rooftops. Lady Murphy floats above her chained coffin at the spell's center. Murphy completes her prayer. A follower reports that the Tower of Secret Rites is approaching and can only be delayed for 10 minutes. With the Nova Death Ray finally complete, Murphy orders her followers to abandon their defense and quickly prepare the portal ritual for escape. Crackling power passes between her followers as Murphy boasts that the weapon could severely injure even while at his prime. Fire dances in Murphy's eye as victory appears certain. Doris notices the spell. She spots the brutal fire magic as the Nova Death Ray. Doris sees Lin's calm face and assumes a destructive spell like this means nothing to him. Doris advances for the glory of the Iris family. Long before becoming a feared cult leader, Murphy was only a child praying for the dead. She bows before the silent altar because faith is the only comfort she has. Day after day she repeats the same prayer and believes her lonely life will never change. Unfortunately, a cruel man soon turned it into something far worse. Murphy met death inside the place that should have protected her. The attacker struck her down. A huge sacred figure suddenly appeared behind the fallen girl. As her tormentor recoiled under the towering apparition, he could only wonder why an impossible force had answered the powerless child's desperate prayer. The strange power slaughtered him while Murphy begged for salvation. Covered in blood, she realized something had saved her. Murphy believed God answered. She later claimed the coffin of eternal rest and built the Scarlet Cult. With an artifact capable of revival and death, Murphy rose into the destructive rank and ensured that anyone defying her will vanished forever. But back in the present, her Nova Death Ray consumes nearly 80% of her ether. Murphy considers the huge cost worth it for punishing the bookstore owner. The spell reaches its limit. She declares the attack to be Lin's payback for offending Lady Murphy. With a triumphant command, Murphy releases the Nova Death Ray and sends a pillar of destructive energy roaring across Nuogen under the storm. A crimson targeting point fixes on a distant bookstore. The searing beam tears through the storm to its target. Scarlet Cult followers celebrate. Doris steps directly into the weapon's path. The death ray crashes down with enough force to erase the bookstore and everyone inside, bathing the entire district in blinding violet fire. Murphy watches from the spell's distant origin, certain she has won. She expects Lin's bookstore to disappear. Doris won't move. The glare clears around the unshaken elf. But Murphy's confidence collapses when she realizes a surprising defender has survived the destructive rank attack and still stands between her and the bookstore. Doris raises one glowing hand to the heavens. Living wood gathers into the amazing sage's staff. Murphy spots the pure white iris. Doris invokes the great elven sage and summons the forest spirits. Holding the legendary staff above her, she calls the guardians of the forest to defend Lin's domain against the approaching wave of annihilation. The forest sanctuary erupts. A colossal tree barrier absorbs the death ray before it reaches the bookstore. The cultists stare in disbelief. They identify Doris the Prophet as the destructive rank sage of the Iris family. The raging beam continues drilling into the forest sanctuary, but its immense trunk remains standing, while roots anchor the magical defense across the battle. Doris next calls on the lady dressed in frost and snow. The sage's bow forms as divine guidance shows her prey. Doris announces her prophecy. A holy light shooting star arrow launches into the sky. Murphy realizes too late that the golden projectile isn't aimed at her body, but at the portal gates prepared for the cult's escape. Her followers dive to the swirling portals. The prophetic arrow detonates among the fleeing cultists. The blast throws them aside. Golden power shreds the remaining portal gates. Murphy curses Doris for targeting the portal network and taking down every escape route before the Scarlet Cult could abandon the battle that night. She admits they are evenly matched but knows backup will soon trap her. With no better option, Murphy commands the coffin to consume fresh sustenance. The cultists recoil. Fanatical followers still present themselves for their mistress's use. The coffin of eternal rest drags the nearby cultists into its crimson interior, crushing their bodies together as fuel for a far darker revival. Their sacrifice awakens the huge dream beast Shantak. Murphy boasts that the revived monster will kill Doris before carrying her through the dream world to murder Lin. Doris can't follow her answer. Murphy dismisses talk and orders the creature forward. As Shantak dives with enough force to crush the street, Doris calmly lifts her staff and prepares a brutal answer Murphy never expected. The revived beast descends on its elven target. Doris laughs at Murphy's confidence in summoned monsters. Night Gaunt answers her call. Doris turns away while the unnatural beasts collide behind her. Certain that her own summon will finish the battle, Doris leaves Murphy with a final warning and promises that the nightmare will continue beyond death. Inside the bookstore, Lin sees only darkness and fog beyond the windows. Doris soon returns and says every problem outside has been handled. Their talk resumes. Lin notices Doris has gone pale and wonders if the noise outside disturbed her. Her clothes are untouched, so he assumes the heavy rain hid most of the chaos. To Lin, it is only an innocent comment meant to calm a nervous guest. To Doris, it sounds like a warning from someone who knows exactly what happened. To her, the storm represents the chaos swallowing Nuogen and the dangerous factions now colliding inside it. Yet Lin considers it mere background noise. Even a battle between destructive beings seems no more major to him than one drop falling into the ocean. Doris nervously wonders what part the bookstore owner played after a dark wizard violated the rules and fought directly outside his strange domain. She can't decide whether the terrible results will finally become a blessing or a curse. Lin simply sighs over the worsening weather and wonders when life in Nuogen will finally improve. He misses the quieter days. Lin says their combined efforts can still change Nuogen. Doris hears the calm promise of someone who was on purpose, reshaping the entire city. She suddenly suspects that he created the present unrest because the old tranquility had left him painfully bored. His harmless smile only makes that terrifying meaning feel more believable. Lin finally notices her fatigue. Thinking about the violent storm outside, he ends the talk and pushes his guest to drink some tea. Doris gratefully accepts his kindness while silently reminding herself that provoking this impossible-to-read being would be the most foolish and dangerous mistake she could ever make. The pure tea gradually releases its delicate flavor and sends soothing warmth across her weary body. She marvels that Lady Silver's favored servant pays careful attention even to something as ordinary as a cup of tea. Nothing outside disturbed his plans. Once Doris recovers, she asks Lin to continue the important talk they had left incomplete. Lin warns that restoring her family's name will be a long struggle, but promises to help if both sides maintain sincere and reliable cooperation. He then leans closer and prepares to reveal the first step of his proposed solution. Doris swallows hard and listens. Lin considers her family's lost honor. He believes restoring dignity to a fallen noble house needs honest knowledge rather than rumors, hollow claims, or unreliable family records. Determined to give Doris every possible advantage, Lin chooses to bring out the most authoritative reference he has on the history and meaning of noble symbols. He recalls how research for his writing once led him through heraldry rituals, folklore, and several surprisingly serious academic links. From his shelves, he retrieves a volume titled Heraldry and Totems. He places the book before Doris. Lin tells her to study it slowly, because its contents will make their later work much easier. The moment Doris touches the unassuming volume, her heart pounds as blue cracks spread through reality and drag her awareness into an alien realm. She awakens under a vast purple sky filled with stars and realizes she has entered the terrifying dream world. Gigantic creatures gather around her. Doris can't summon her strength. Helpless before the advancing monsters, she realizes they can crush her before she has any chance to escape. As the nightmare closes in, an ancient symbol suddenly manifests through the book and commands powers way beyond anything Doris has ever witnessed. The nearby beasts recoil as luminous force spreads across the darkness and seals their approach. That strange safety tears Doris away from certain death and forces the dream world to release her. She jolts back into the bookstore. Her trembling hand remains pressed against the book while the impossible experience settles into her mind. Doris spots the symbol as both shelter and retreat, an amazing safeguard seemingly designed to defend its bearer from the dream world's monstrous people. More oddly, the book nearly pushed her into an omen state just through the knowledge held on a single page. Lin calls it simple introductory reading. Doris promises to study it slowly. She remembers spending decades to receive only one vague truth from Lady Silver, while this book granted profound understanding almost instantly. If one tiny symbol holds such terrifying power, Doris can't imagine how much forbidden knowledge fills the volume or the rest of Lin's bookstore. Lin suddenly stresses one extra point before allowing her to leave with the precious reference. He says many people have recently been asking him for help making his available resources more and more valuable. Doris stiffens at the warning. Lin privately praises himself on creating a sense of urgency, convinced that a little scarcity will encourage his hesitant customer to commit. Doris notices the price tag and asks to purchase several copies so every member of her family can study the sacred knowledge together. Her eagerness delights Lin, but her solemn promise to study hard makes the ordinary transaction sound strangely serious. He searches his remaining stock. One suitable item catches his eye. Doris waits anxiously as the bookstore owner rummages through a large box behind the counter. Wanting to reward such an unusually excited customer, Lin dramatically sets down a container and adds a special gift to complete the purchase. Doris stares at the surprising offering with a mixture of surprise relief and lingering embarrassment. Lin presents a tin of green tea and suggests its flavor with the confidence of a considerate store owner. He warmly invites her back. Doris thanks Lin for guiding her family and solemnly promises to repay his kindness if they ever reclaim their former glory. The battle is over, but the ruined street is still drowning in rain. Andrew surveys the damage and curses the lunatics who caused it. Workers search the wreckage while he personally checks the spells left behind. After surviving the attack, they have little patience for his formal words. Their complaints reveal how badly the battle overwhelmed both local defenses and the trusted ether tracking system. Even loose rubble feels dangerous now. The agents remember that a destructive rank mage shattered the nearby stone and wisely focus on finishing their assigned work. Andrew directs the cleanup teams with growing impatience, demanding every useful lead while warning them not to overlook anything connected to the attack. When he suggests further search, a nervous follower backs away from the obvious danger. George Byron hesitantly reports that the Order of Truth appears to have missed something extremely serious. Andrew's look instantly hardens. George activates a tracing spell and follows the lingering ether trail across the shattered street. The evidence shows that the ether tracking network did not respond during the battle, a failure that should have been technically impossible out of nowhere. George sees only two answers. George identifies Lady Murphy the Precant and the Scarlet Cult wizards involved in the attack. The attack's pattern gradually becomes clear. George identifies Lady Murphy the Precant and several Scarlet Cult wizards while reconstructing the spells exchanged across the conflict. The Scarlet Cult had launched a huge attack against the forces obstructing its plans, drawing the Tower of Secret Rites and the Order into chaos. Their hidden mirror egg instant portals, suicidal control, and endless zombie servants had again and again frustrated every previous search. This time, their retaliation also struck Spider, the White Wolves splinter group now led by Ji Shiksu. Yet their leader still died here. George struggles to understand how Lady Murphy lost a battle the Scarlet Cult should have been prepared to win. The evidence suggests the operation collapsed at its highest level, leaving the agents to wonder what unknown power suddenly reversed the expected outcome out of nowhere. George's attention shifts from the battle to the quiet bookstore standing beside the devastation. An inexplicable attraction urges the scholar to discover what secrets are waiting inside. Andrew quickly blocks the way. He firmly orders George to stop before curiosity creates another disaster. George calls the warning strange and says that entering the bookstore is an obvious part of looking into the truth behind this impossible incident. The scholar argues that both the shop and its owner are now certain persons of interest. Uncovering their secret would fulfill George's duty to the Order of Truth. Andrew pleads for basic sanity. George indignantly claims that a calm mind and sound judgment are essential qualities had by every proper scholar. George refuses to let even a destructive rank knight question his character. Andrew remembers how impossible it is to change a scholar's mind once intellectual obsession takes hold. He considers leaving the problem to Claude if George continues behaving like the Order's familiar, reckless fools. Andrew reveals that the Tower of Secret Rites has already rated the bookstore as a forbidden Class 1 area. He warns George that the bookstore owner helped them and must not be provoked. Because the Order's database hasn't been updated, George can't understand how an entity this dangerous remained under their noses for so many years. Andrew bitterly notes that their seemingly flawless network also failed to detect the destructive magic unleashed only moments earlier. He tells George to examine the Order's failures before asking the bookstore. Someone suddenly emerges from the shop. That is when George freezes as long golden hair sweeps through the rain. Andrew stares in equal disbelief when the elegant stranger steps into view out of nowhere and shows the clear features of a high-born elf. Both agents recognize the impossible sight before them. George can understand why an elf would appear in Nuajin or walk freely from this certain bookstore. Pureblood elves rarely tolerate humans. Yet this proud noble lady looks back at the shop with clear reverence before continuing to the agents. Her presence confirms the bookstore's impossible reach while Andrew remembers his own borrowed book and the approaching time to return it to the shelves. Doris notices the two figures lingering near the entrance and turns directly to them. She coldly demands to know why members of the Order are standing at her master's doorstep. George realizes the horrible truth. The young scholar can barely accept that the nearby store shelters an ancient being respected by a destructive rank elven prophet. Doris closes her eyes and invokes her master's authority, causing a suffocating aura to gather around every member of the search team in the rain. She accuses the Order of becoming arrogant because Lin's mercy has allowed its agents to grow careless. Her eyes burn red as she asks if reckless curiosity has overcome their instinct for survival. George chokes under the pressure. The scholar silently panics over somehow provoking yet another destructive rank being during what was meant to be a routine search. Andrew quickly steps between them and says George is just an overeager scholar who intended no insult and poses absolutely no threat. He says their only purpose was to look into the battle and submit an accurate report. Andrew trusts that someone as mighty as Lin would never be bothered by one tiny scholar. Doris gives them a simple answer. Several dark wizards appeared out of nowhere and prepared to unleash a destructive spell beside the bookstore. She stopped them before they could attack, but Andrew privately figures Lim provoked the Scarlet Cult and ordered Doris to execute its leader. Doris says she arrived in Nuojin for the Iris family and found her master's messenger under an unprovoked assault. Doris reminds them that she stopped the attackers while they planned to repay her by invading Lin's store. Andrew quickly expresses his gratitude. He shows that Lin once lent him a book, which solved a problem that had tormented him for years. George finally understands and thanks Doris on behalf of the Order of Truth. An urgent message from the vice president suddenly cuts off the scholar's relieved attempt to conclude the search. The caller orders George to speak directly with the great sage of the Iris family. Doris watches the stunned scholar. To understand Andrew and Doris, we have to go back 300 years. Young elves crowd around a human scholar who is preparing to leave their settlement. Andrew cannot stay because his duty to the Order of Truth gives him no choice. Unfortunately, his charming smile only makes the gathered elves want him to stay even more. Andrew gently lifts one elf's hand and presses an intimate kiss against her fingers. He boldly praises her beauty, promising that he could admire her forever. Andrew leans closer until the flustered elf reminds him everyone is watching. Doris cuts off the flirtation with an amused smile and tells her people to stop distracting the settlement's visiting human scholar before his work suffers. Andrew spots Lady Doris and learns that she is preparing to return from her long journey through the human world. She describes her mission as a great prophecy about the future of the elven people. Time means little to elves. Doris can wait centuries if necessary to regain her master's favor and receive another divine truth. Andrew promises that he will rise among the Order's most powerful leaders and offer Doris every truth she could ever need inside his lifetime. She warmly thanks the ambitious young guest while gently patting his head. Doris says elves seem aloof because very few things genuinely deserve an eternal place inside their memories. Andrew understands the painful implication. To Doris he remains a fleeting child whose face and promises will later disappear under countless passing years. When she playfully recalls how small he once looked, Andrew blushes and asks not to be treated like a child or temporary guest. He requests a proper meeting, and Doris promises to remember his name until her present body finally reaches its end. The young scholar introduces himself as Andrew Russell, future Vice President of the Order of Truth. 300 years pass. Inside the Order's main base in central Nuwogen, two elderly department chiefs sit across a chessboard. Alchemy Chief Walter Leonard announces the Iris family's surprising return, then teasingly sees that Andrew's youthful love survived only as an unfulfilled memory. The brilliant flirt has grown old without ever winning the woman he truly desired. Andrew answers with a silent glare. Lowell Fitch suddenly changes the subject. The mechanics chief shows that someone accepted Wilde's huge bounty and wonders what fool would hunt such a tyrannical, destructive rank wizard. Walter reasons that Wilde's power and vanishing make the job suicidal for anyone below destructive rank, yet even his rival Joseph before refused it. Since destructive rank fighters rarely need money, the Order may soon be forced to pay a huge reward from its strained treasury. Fitch happily suggests cutting funds from Walter's disorderly alchemy research to cover the looming expense. Walter quickly erupts. He retaliates by mocking the mechanics division's automatic hair-washing devices and multifunctional restraint collars as expensive, useless nonsense. Fitch defends the inventions as brilliant work by Hansen Gorsch and gleefully threatens to make Walter personally test every future mechanical creation, without mercy. Walter awkwardly clears his throat. The argument disrupts their chess game and leaves both proud chiefs more and more irritated. Walter accuses Fitch of cheating. Fitch says despite countless wrongs he still considers his bitter rival a dear friend. Walter calls him cunning, ruthless, and obsessed with money as their seemingly friendly match descends into another furious exchange of insults again. Fitch boasts that Doris helped him obtain a superior philosopher's stone from the coffin of eternal rest for his incomplete best work. Walter predicts another failure report followed by yet another shameless request for extra funding. Their tempers finally explode. After shouting themselves quiet, the two chiefs sit back and resume glaring across the table. Walter returns to the important question and demands the identity of the destructive rank hunter who finally accepted Wilde's bounty for the dangerous mission. Far away, that hunter moves through the rain while following a violent trail between ruined buildings. Burton Ackerman recalls leaving his weapon nearby and reaches for it as a monstrous shape lunges from the darkness. The creature closes in rapidly. Joseph calmly evades its attack and prepares to strike before the black-scaled beast can recover. After locating his target, Burton studies the bounty details and identifies Wilde as promising prey for the win he badly needs in the shadows. Burton believes finishing this hunt will finally earn him official destructive rank status. The scarred hunter compares the listed description with the monster looming before him. He approves of his prey. Back at main base, Fitch says Burton accepted the bounty to secure status after corrupted blood raised his strength during standardized testing. Walter absorbs the troubling news as the sound of approaching footsteps cuts off their talk and draws every cautious gaze to the chamber entrance. Both chiefs turn to the chamber entrance and realize an important superior has arrived. Vice President Andrew enters solemnly. The room falls silent. Andrew admits that seeing Doris unchanged after 300 years makes his aged body feel trapped inside a dream. Her face, voice, and presence remain exactly as he remembers, forcing the ancient scholar to confront the merciless passage of his own lifetime. The chiefs privately note that her elven longevity is obvious and wonder why Andrew feels so emotional after spending his youth chasing countless women. Walter finally asks if the Iris family truly spots the strange bookstore owner as its master. Andrew covers his weary eyes. He gives them the Tower of Secret Rites report and orders both chiefs to study its answers. Before they can recover, Andrew casually announces a huge reduction to Walter's alchemy budget beginning next month in front of everyone and leaves the chief horrified. More seriously, Andrew admits that even he doubted an overwhelming rank entity lived in Nugent until Joseph personally confirmed the report. Because the bookstore owner appears friendly, Andrew sees no immediate reason to provoke him through a rushed search. The chiefs remain visibly uneasy. Andrew rises and prepares to explain the cautious strategy he intends the order to follow. He stresses that allowing an overwhelming rank being to remain unexamined could endanger Nuogen and every citizen, no matter how harmless that being now appears. Sending Ackerman to test the waters will reveal the bookstore owner's behavior without forcing an open fight. Andrew says they must learn Lin's patterns and plans because millions of lives depend on the Order's judgment. The recent disaster demands thought. The Order exists to pursue knowledge and preserve stability, but unchecked authority can corrupt even groups created with noble plans. Fitch and Walter realize Andrew suspects a mole has been helping the Scarlet Cult and White Wolves evade every attempt to destroy them. Andrew warns that continued failure will destroy the Order's credibility and give its concealed enemies even greater freedom to control the city. The two department chiefs finally understand the severity of the vice president's plan. Andrew won't surrender to fear. Under the skeletal dragon monument, his determined gaze reflects a renewed commitment to the Order's original purpose. Elsewhere, Lin reviews the firefighters' report and learns that rescuers held the spreading blaze exactly when it reached the front of his bookstore. He studies the absurd boundary separating untouched homes on one side from complete ruins on the other. Lin slowly opens a window and stares outside at the battle's brutal aftermath. He slept through the explosion. Since nothing inside the store was damaged, Lin assumes he must simply be a very deep sleeper. His attention returns to the potted seedling Doris gave him as repayment because she felt uncomfortable accepting his own gift without offering something. She claimed the precious plant had a mind and fed on desire, which Lin dismisses as romantic nonsense meant to impress young girls. Hoping it will improve the bookstore's appearance, Lin waters the seedling and pushes it to grow on his modest wishes. The rare seedling becomes a perfect red rose overnight. Lin is delighted because the empty bookstore finally has some color. He has always wanted flowers inside and believes this one will make the shop feel warmer. Since Doris called it rare, he never questions how impossibly fast it grew. He pushes the beautiful flower to charm his customers and hopefully inspire them to purchase several extra books. Business has been painfully slow. Now while Lin wonders if anyone will visit, a hidden eye quietly opens between the rose's crimson petals. Outside, a tall hunter in black follows the fading strange traces through the rain and arrives before Lin's brightly lit storefront under the dark clouds. He decides the owner either can't operate a bookstore properly or has no genuine interest in selling books. The intruder is Burton Ackerman, the destructive rank hunter known as the Pale Watchman. That is when Burton finds Wilde's ether trail. He praises the black-scaled faceless man's disguise but knows the lingering scent can't deceive his sharpened senses. Near the entrance, Burton detects the aura of a weak sentient creation and assumes Wilde placed it there as a hidden magical guard. He figures the bookstore served as Wilde's secret outpost despite looking like an ordinary and unsuccessful little shop. Scattered traces in the rain confirm that his target before moved through this location. Burton studies the silent building. He notes how efficiently the Order and the Tower erased the battle's aftermath and relocated nearby residents. With Murphy dead, Burton believes the remaining plotters are helpless mice whose damage was determined long before Doris out of nowhere entered the conflict inside Nuogen. He hopes Murphy spotted her mistakes before dying, but meeting an elven sage just accelerated a certain defeat. The hunter briefly considers whether the strange guardian can lure intruders into lowering their defenses. He dismisses the concern. But even without obvious ether inside the shop, Burton won't underestimate a location connected to his dangerous target. His mission needs him to enter as an ordinary customer and learn what he can, without exposing his identity, and avoid every needless problem during the dangerous visit. Burton silently begins the operation. He pushes open the doors and steps into the bookstore under the rose's concealed gaze. The hunter remains intensely alert. From the entrance, Burton judges the shelves and decor too mundane to deserve further attention. He identifies the flower as an automatic guardian that reacts to killing intent and convinces himself he will remain safe while harboring no hostile thoughts. Burton focuses on Lin believing the seemingly ordinary store owner still serves as Wilde's slowly selected informant. Lin beams at his first customer. After several lonely days without visitors, he can barely contain his excitement at finally having someone enter the store. Lin imagines renovations, better business, lively talks, and the welcome arrival of a new source of income. Meanwhile, Burton praises himself on having a chance to employ his neglected conversational skills and preserve his harmless disguise before the suspicious owner. Lin politely asks if his guest wants to borrow, browse, or purchase a book. Burton answers that he only intends to browse. He begins his search. Before taking another step, Burton notices something positioned on the counter behind him. The expensive-looking rose stands out inside the dull bookstore and immediately catches Burton's eye. He wonders why such a precious flower would be displayed inside such an unimpressive place. The rose trembles like responding to his scrutiny. Its hidden eye opens wider. That huge pupil fixes directly on Burton and begins exerting a force he never expected. The rose suddenly seizes Burton's body and starts pulling something vital from his soul. Unaware of the attack, Lin invites him to ask any question that comes to mind. He then cheerfully tells the frozen visitor to browse as he pleases. Burton can't move at all. Lin's welcoming smile now resembles the look of a predator watching a foolish mouse enter its trap. Burton believes Lin saw through him from the start and only invited him to browse so he could enjoy the intruder's fear. Every innocent remark sounds like a threat, and Burton even hears Lin's apology as mockery for letting his pet attack. The rose continues feeding on him. His soul begins leaking away. Although Burton retains his strength, mind, and will, a mysterious force prevents him from resisting or even moving. Being devoured while fully aware fills him with absolute hopelessness, and he fears the flower will leave him trapped in paralysis until death. Terror shatters the veteran hunter's confidence and leaves tears streaming across his scarred face. That is when Lin finally notices his guest's bizarre silence and troubled look. He asks if Burton needs help. The hunter can only shift his gaze between Lin and the monstrous flower resting innocently nearby. Mistaking that terrified stare for praise, Lin proudly lifts the pot and asks if Burton also thinks his new flower looks beautiful for his customers. Burton collapses against the wall as strength drains from his legs. Anger, panic, powerlessness, and desperation overwhelm him until he becomes too tired even to scream. The rose shows countless hungry eyes. After consuming its fill, the creature closes every pupil and resumes the harmless shape of an ordinary flower. Broken by the experience, Burton laughs weakly and praises the rose's beauty because agreement now seems like his only path to survival inside the bookstore. While the bounty and destructive rank status suddenly feel worthless compared with the simple miracle of remaining alive. Ackerman gives up on fighting and starts questioning every choice that brought him here. Burton praises the beautiful rose because he is too terrified to say what he really sees. Lin mistakes that fear for genuine admiration and smiles with pride. He believes careful watering has made the flower happy enough to charm another customer. What he does not realize is that Burton sees a monster pretending to be a plant. He says he slowly waters the treasured plant every day. The rose watches them silently. Burton's forced smile trembles as he looks from the cheerful store owner to the creature that nearly consumed his soul. Lin continues talking about romance and respect for plants, fully unaware that every harmless statement sounds like deranged worship to the terrified hunter inside the bookstore. Burton remembers that even Murphy just worshipped Revive's dream beasts, rather than treating vile monsters as human allies. His fear deepens as he studies Lin's calm look and the impossible darkness nearby him. He decides Lin isn't human. Now Burton wonders if the store owner resembles the rose but simply has a much more believable disguise. Burton cannot sense any ether, which makes Lin's cruel personality and impossible power even harder to explain. He weakly claims that Lin's effort in caring for the flower deserves honest praise. Burton figures the order intentionally sent him here as expendable cannon fodder despite knowing the truth about the bookstore. Lin notices his unease. Desperate to escape, Burton claims his host looks busy and awkwardly says he should leave. Lin sees the sweat-shaking hands and sickly look of a customer who appears close to falling under an invisible burden right before him. Burton freezes when the store owner points directly to him. Lin offers him a cozy place to rest and talk. A chair waits nearby. Burton assumes Lin noticed his escape attempt and became angry because his praise lacked sufficient honesty. Terrified of giving offense, Burton says he feels perfectly healthy even while his body openly betrays panic and fatigue while they talk. Lin studies the strange visitor before him. Judging by Burton's age and aimless look, Lin mistakes him for a burned-out office employee suffering through a severe midlife crisis. He stresses their complete privacy. Lin invites Burton to speak freely and promises to listen like an old friend. But the hunter takes this reassurance as a direct threat that nobody will witness whatever Lin does if he won't cooperate inside the empty bookstore. To Burton, the friendly offer becomes a clear act of intimidation. He figures refusing to sit and explain himself will provoke an immediate and terrible payback. Truth suddenly seems safer. Burton imagines admitting that he came to ambush Wild, but was instead defeated by Lin. In his mind, the bookstore owner's eyes blaze with delighted malice as the nearby shadows prepare to tear him apart with no way out. Nightmarish mouths and grasping creatures fill Burton's mind while Lin calmly waits for his supposed new friend to open up. The hunter mentally screams in horror, certain that honesty will get him dissected. Burton won't reveal his actual mission. He finally accepts the offered chair under Lin's patient and encouraging gaze. Burton sits rigidly while fighting tears, convinced his mind and body have already been captured, and fight will only make everything worse inside the bookstore. He chooses to endure whatever happens. Lin considers Burton's willingness to sit down an important first step, but earning his trust will require patience. He resolves to take the initiative. Lin gently asks if Burton's troubles come from always forcing himself beyond fair limits. Burton thinks every hunter naturally pushes to greater strength, but Lin's sharp read still makes the question feel oddly personal during the unfolding interrogation. Believing he has identified workplace fatigue, Lin prepares to offer practical advice for emotional recovery. He waits for Burton to describe the problem so that his planned guidance can begin. Burton reflects on corrupted power's terrible cost. He remembers how people in charge praise fairness while treating hunters as disposable tools whose wins belong to the groups controlling them. Lin misreads the bitter look as anger from a corporate employee seeking promotion while an abusive supervisor continually denies deserved status inside the bookstore. He pours tea and assures Burton that he understands the feeling. Lin asks if his guest has considered finding another way forward. The idea shocks Burton. His heart pounds as the chance of escaping the path chosen for him suddenly becomes real. Lin says that once someone spots they are just a tool, continuing to accept exploitation only rewards those abusing their loyalty for their own benefit. He asks if Burton truly intends to keep allowing those people to use him. They demand sacrifice without offering fair respect or anything worth it in return. Lin trusts Burton to understand. The hunter's fear gives way to anger as the store owner's words expose resentments he has suppressed for decades. Hunters borrow unstable power from corrupted dream beast blood, and every injection coursing through their bodies risks changing them into the very monsters they fight. Some later lose themselves and unleash disasters, causing the Order to regard every hunter as a potential enemy. Burton accepts the need for sanity tests and oversight, yet remains fiercely proud of his dangerous job. He has hunted for 30 years. That span is brief to beings like him, but has left his aging body near collapse after too many injections from the Pale Man. Each use of corrupted blood weakens Burton's sanity, torments his will, and brings him closer to the moment when even powerful tranquilizers stop working. With his medication already failing, the hunter realizes neither his body nor his mind can continue much longer. Official destructive rank status no longer seems worth surrendering the rest of his life to the people in charge. That is when Burton discovers he has a choice. Until now, he believed every important fight needed approval from the same groups exploiting him. Lin notices that Burton never considered another option and decides his tired customer needs support to imagine a free future before deciding. He asks if leaving those people in charge would truly prevent Burton from accomplishing anything through his own effort. Lin argues that the future should remain in Burton's hands rather than depend on an uncaring group. One decision can change everything. Burton rises with renewed fire and says he will seize control of his future with his own power. He takes Lin's advice as approval from an absolute authority to reject the Order and rebel against every group that ruled him without fear. The eloquence of Lin's ordinary career counseling feels profound enough to open Burton's mind and ignite amazing resolve. Lin senses that his visitor still has a defiant heart and may finally make one last effort to improve his life. Give in can invite further abuse. Because Burton can't oppose powerful people in charge alone, Lin suggests joining allies who share his goals and can stand beside him. He offers to introduce Burton to Jishu, a capable customer, whose group may provide exactly the support and alliance the hunter needs. Lin offers to introduce Burton to Jishu as if it is a simple favor. Burton can only stare because he understands how dangerous that meeting could become. The moment Lin describes her, Burton realizes he means the hunter behind Spider's sudden rise. That connection makes one thing clear: because Lin has been linking these people for a reason. Now Burton wonders if this meeting has always been part of the bookstore owner's hidden plan. Lin calmly confirms his decision. Burton remembers Ji surrounded by ominous power and begins imagining what their alliance could accomplish. Lin's knowing smile makes the hunter believe countless future events have already been expected and arranged by the mysterious mastermind before him for many years. In reality, Lin just combines known details with vague questions and lets troubled customers choose whatever meaning brings them comfort. He thinks starting a business may suit someone tired by an endless working schedule. Burton was bullied and exploited. Lin figures leaving such a miserable career would be the best possible choice. At the very least, Burton must release the fears and obligations keeping him trapped before he can build a different and more satisfying life. Ji can probably prevent him from becoming unemployed, and Lin privately decides that fighting one monopoly with another has a certain practical elegance. Roar Resources, managed by Ji's father, controls nearly every mineral growth right in Nuojan's lower district and influences most major industries. Its reach touches almost everything. Even after only 3 years in this world, Lin has again and again met the company's shadow and researched its remarkably long history. His research describes Nuojan as a divided city whose circular upper district floats on steel far above the buried settlements and natural resources below. Maps, records, and gathered supplies reveal how much the two halves depend on each other. Nearly all genuine natural resources remain trapped inside the sealed area called the underground or transition zone. Its people have endured endless isolation. but inside glowing caverns miners still dig dangerous deposits from the earth by hand. An elderly woman finds a child wandering near the mines and gently leads her to the daily exchange, where gathered stones become badly needed food. The proud girl shows that one extra stone should earn another bowl for their family. She asks if the world above truly exists and whether its people labor as brutally as those underground. The Church of Pestilence began there. Over time, groups formed to transport the lower district's resources upward, while keeping a separation imposed on its residents. Only Roar Resources alone has access to the closed zone, a privilege so extreme that Lin finds the entire arrangement almost absurd across all of Nuogen. Still, helping G and Burton connect may make stronger, useful connections and perhaps attract wealthy new customers to the bookstore. G should return inside several days to repay the book she borrowed after Lin helped her through recent trouble. Burton listens with mounting awe. He recalls how G out of nowhere defeated Helix and disrupted the alliance between the Scarlet Cult and the White Wolves. Burton figures Lin has been on purpose provoking conflict between Hunters and the Order of Truth because he intends to overturn Nuogen's established balance. To him, the devilish store owner manipulates emotions for amusement even while offering words warm enough to soothe every hidden wound. He imagines fragmented Hunters uniting into a new faction capable of challenging both the Order and the Tower of Secret Rights. Burton accepts becoming Lin's pawn. He abandons his desire for official destructive rank approval and resolves to make one free decision he will never regret. The path ahead looks dangerous, but Burton embraces the risk because choosing for himself finally feels more important than obedient survival under anyone's control. He slowly asks Lin about the chance of borrowing a book. Lin says people beginning a new venture often lack the experience needed to avoid early mistakes. He selects a suitable volume. Burton remembers that G borrowed a book before gaining shocking strength under the bookstore owner's guidance. The link seems obvious to him and he realizes these ordinary shelves may contain forbidden power capable of changing anyone who receives Lin's favor. That chance leaves the Hunter both excited and afraid. Lin says the chosen book perfectly matches Burton's current situation and may guide him to a better future. He presents the strange volume. Several living eyes and a jagged mouth decorate its dark cover. The title Void Sacrifice glows under Burton's fingers as the object awakens and confronts him with an abyss filled by impossible cosmic beings. The Hunter's heart pounds while he touches the book's unnaturally warm surface. Pages and symbols rise through the darkness before opening a path into the waiting void. Burton stands alone before infinity. The huge beings surround Burton, while knowledge no human should possess rushes into his terrified mind. Lin describes the book as the legacy of someone who reached the end of a difficult road and says understanding it should make Burton's journey easier. Burton takes the vision as knowledge of a void formed beyond the final barrier and a path cut through impossible limits. The power is within reach, but whether Burton can use it depends entirely on the giver's mood. Lin's abilities defy Burton's grasp. The Hunter thanks him for the lesson and says he finally understands what must be done. Burton promises not to disappoint the being who just gave him purpose and vast knowledge. Burton considers serving as Lin's pawn the greatest honor possible and anticipates a future much more exciting than his former life. As Burton leaves with renewed resolve, Lin warmly invites him to visit again. Lin celebrates another customer finding inspiration.